All right, I think we're live. Going to try to be going live on Wednesdays. I'm dressed warm. I've got my hat on. There's snow on the ground outside. Got to stay warm. And let's get into some really stupid politics. So one thing that I wanted to do on today's episode of Uninformed Leftist was cover some of the grifting that I've seen. So a lot of more like liberal and leftist people going to the right. I think Anna Kasparian is a huge example of that. And then also Cenk Uygur, who's Anna's co-host. They've been kind of like playing footsie with the right. And it's been something that's really interesting to see. We also just have a lot of Republicans or a lot of Democrats that are now speaking on Republican talking points. We had Kamala Harris adopting the right-wing framing on the border, saying that we need a strong border, we need the strongest military in the history of the world. And that didn't really help her win, right? If you are giving Republican talking points, then the Republicans are just going to be like, okay, good. I'm still going to vote for a real Republican. So there's that. And let's just get into this guy talking about trans issues.
You were getting some pretty heavy criticism from people in your own party for something you said to the New York Times. I just want to read it for our viewers. You said Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. I have two little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. And your fellow Democrat from Massachusetts, Congressman John Moran, who is gay, said on social media, quote, "The only thing we here in Massachusetts shouldn't be afraid to say is that you should find another job if you want to use an election loss as an opportunity to pick on our most vulnerable. A councilman in your district called those remarks hate speech." You're getting quite a bit of pushback. I just want to hear what you think it all means and how you're responding to this.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Jessica. Look, I was just speaking authentically as a parent about one of many issues where Democrats are just out of touch with the majority of Americans. And I stand by my position, even though I may not have used exactly the right words. And I'm willing to have this debate, as I've been having with LGBTQ advocates and others, some of whom agree with me and others who don't. But we're engaging in a thoughtful debate. On the other hand, some of the people like you mentioned.
This is so dumb. I mean, the guy's talking about political strategy. Oh, maybe we shouldn't be so in favor of trans people. Maybe we shouldn't publicly support them. And when pushed back against that and saying you shouldn't pick on our most vulnerable population, he retreats back to the position of, I'm just speaking out as a concerned parent. I'm just opening the floor to debating these issues. It's like, okay, well, that's not what you were initially saying, right? Was the initial tweet that he said, let's see, did they put it up here? Or this was the criticism of him. But if we go back to what she originally said. You were getting some
pretty heavy criticism from people in your own party for something you said to the New York Times. I just want to read it for our viewers. You said Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. I have two little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. And your fellow Democrat from Massachusetts.
Yeah, so he's criticizing the Democrats' campaigning strategy, saying that Democrats are too afraid to say that they are scared of trans people. That's essentially what he's saying, right? I'm the father of two little girls. I'm afraid of trans people. But as a Democratic Party, we're supposed to be too afraid to actually speak our minds about that. And this whole conversation of the American people are sick of trans. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, if it is true, shouldn't it be our job as progressive people that believe in human rights and equality for everyone, to educate the American population on trans people? I mean, they're literally the only reason trans issues are big is because Republicans are like insist on targeting them with just hate campaigns. It's a whole Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney, why the conservatives got so triggered about that, and why they like abandoned Bud Light because of it, because it was a trans person. It's not that trans people are messing with your kids. It's not that the trans people are advocating for like men to get killed. David Dole, who's that guy? The Rational National. Also, yeah, I mean, let's just take a look at this survey. The Gender Policy Report, American Attitudes Towards Transgender Rights. Since the start of 2023, state legislatures across the country have introduced dozens of anti-trans bills to restrict medical transition care for transgender youth and bar transgender girls from participating in youth sports. This wave of anti-transgender legislation continues a recent trend of increasing hostility towards transgender rights. So, what does this say? We recently examined how public opinion on transgender rights has changed since the issue gained prominence in 2014. We found that the general feelings towards transgender people have become warmer over time, and that support for policies related to civil rights has increased to constitute large majorities. Consistent with these findings, in an August 2022's national survey, 83% of respondents believe that transgender people deserve the same rights as other Americans. I don't know what survey this is, but according to this, thoughts on Bad Empanada. He seems a little edgy in terms of his humor, but like, I think his effective message, the things he's getting the most views on, which are his anti-genocidal videos, are fine. Like, criticizing people for supporting a genocide is 100% valid, in my opinion. And Ethan and Gila have opened themselves up for criticism. Destiny and Lonerbox have opened themselves up. And to be honest, other than his content covering those people, I haven't really experienced like too much of Bad Empanada's content. But I think his humor is a little stupid. Like, I saw this video yesterday where he put out a video saying, "Thank you, Ethan Klein." And it was like, "Oh, we're the deep state and you're actually playing right into our hands." And it's like, why are you, I don't know, try to be a little bit more serious on this topic when we are arming and funding a genocide as Americans. Where is this? Where are they getting this data from? It just says, in an August 2022 national survey, I guess it's just a survey talking about a bunch of different stuff. So 83% of respondents believe that transgender people deserve the same rights as other Americans. Similarly, large majorities reported agreeing with laws to protect transgender children from bullying and allowing transgender people to serve openly in the military. In addition, 61% of Americans disagree that businesses should be able to refuse services to transgender people based off of their religious beliefs. Anti-trans rhetoric influences public opinion. At the same time, the public remains divided on policies that have received more attention in the political arena. In the last several years, Republican lawmakers have instigated anti-trans campaigns against gender-affirming medical care and access to public accommodations in the form of bathroom bills. Anti-trans rhetoric Anti-trans rhetoric, particularly that which aims to incite disgust against anti-trans bodies or against trans bodies, seems to influence public opinion. Policies restricting bathroom access and medical transition care for transgender youth garnered plurality support in recent years, with many people undecided or unwilling to take a clear position. So that's interesting. I think that essentially, what we have seen in polling and what I would like to believe to be true is that Americans in general see themselves as a freedom-loving group of people. The whole idea of live and let live. I'm going to live my life, you live your life, and let's just, it's like the libertarian ideal, right? I'm going to get rich because I have meritocracy. And that's been the whole idea behind America. And I think that support for transgender people largely falls under that idea, where if you are being asked your opinion on transgender people, they're like, okay, it's not for me. But if a man wants to wear a dress, that's fine with it, right? I feel like that's the idea that a lot of Americans have of trans people. However, when they get like political rhetoric shouted at them and they're just like bathed in it, then they do start thinking that, well, I'm fine with trans people, but when they start affecting other people, then I'm not okay with it. So I think that is interesting. That's a kind of a good starting point to react to the rest of this video. But just remember that Americans do not give a fuck about trans people. And the only reason why it's a big deal is because Republicans are making it a big deal. And so when this fucking asshole says that, when this guy says that he is, as a father, he's disgusted at trans athletes running over his like young 2-year-old daughter or something on the soccer field, and he's just representing all of them. He's just representing the normal Americans. Well, normal Americans do not interact with trans people in their everyday life, let alone trans athletes in their children's soccer field games. Nice to see some live content. The only criticism I have of your videos I've seen so far is the inability to have a dialogue between you and the community. I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty receptive to comments. Maybe you can expand more upon that thought. I mean, are you just talking about the lack of live streams that I've been doing? But yeah, if you want to talk to me, you can send me an email. I'm honestly not on Twitter that much. I just made a Blue Sky account yesterday, so maybe you can. I think I linked my Blue Sky account into my channel description. You can send me a message there. I have my email. People have been emailing me, so yeah, leave comments. I've been responding to comments too. I feel like I've been pretty like open to back and forths with people in my comment section and stuff. Obviously, I'm not going to respond to every single comment, but yeah, like, feel free to chat. Feel free to ask me questions. And live streaming is something that I want to do. By the way, I did have a super chat that was sent to me yesterday. So shout out Norma Joe. He said, Zionist crybullies have long deplatformed Muslims in every sector, but Hassan is so loved and a good person, they were unable to get him deplatformed, so Ethan is doubling down because he's an entitled brat. I mean, obviously, calling Ethan an entitled brat, that's funny, right? But I do think that Ethan is coming to this conversation from a point of privilege, which is undeniable. Like, he's not being bombed. He's not even really being subjected to hatred. In the way that a lot of other minority groups are.
Congressman John Moran, who is gay, said on social media, quote, the only thing we here in Massachusetts shouldn't be afraid to say is that you should find another job if you want to use an election loss as an opportunity to pick on our most vulnerable, a councilman in your district, call those remarks hate speech. You're getting quite a bit of pushback. I just want to hear what you think it all means.
Bro, I just think it's so funny that this guy, what's his name? Representative Moulton, he's like, Kamala Harris lost the election. It's time to unroll my anti-trans agenda. Fuck trans people. I don't want them anywhere near my daughters. It's like, okay, dude, that is definitely ideological.
And how you're responding to this.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Jessica. Look, I was just speaking authentically as a parent about one of many issues where Democrats are just out of touch with the majority of Americans. And I stand by my position, even though I may not have used exactly the right words. And I'm willing to have this debate, as I've been having with LGBTQ advocates and others, some of whom agree with me and others who don't. But we're engaging in a thoughtful debate. On the other hand, some of the people, like you mentioned, are just more interested in shaming fellow Democrats, shaming the majority of voters when they simply don't meet their ideological purity test. And
I love this framed as you're not meeting my ideological purity test when the debate that he's so intent on having is, should trans people exist in public spaces? That's what the debate is. So, I mean, my position is, if you're going to debate the validity of like a group of people, you can go fuck off. Because if you're saying that, yeah, you should be no longer a part of society, then that is essentially advocating for violence against that group of people. And when you're advocating for violence, you shouldn't be met with, okay, well, let's hear out your thoughts, let's hear out your positions, and then I'm going to respond to you and tell you why you're wrong. Again, when you're advocating for an extermination of a group of people, you didn't arrive at that position through facts and logic. You arrived at it through like propaganda, brainwashing, and just like a deep-seated hatred towards that group of people. And you should kind of be met in kind. I'm not saying like respond with violence to every single person who essentially advocates for violence and the extermination of minority groups, but I don't think you need to respond to them in good faith. If they arrive to these positions through brainwashing and just like getting subsumed by this rhetoric, just like covered in it, and they just live in it every day, where trans people are gross, there's like, they're like looking up pictures of women and with bulges in their pants, and they're like, God, trans women. But if they're like arriving at that position through just these emotions, you kind of have to treat them with the same kind of disregard that they're treating trans people with, because yeah, there's no arguing in good faith with them. I hate to be that person, but yeah, I watched H3 and was a member, dude. I watched for the goofs. When Ethan started talking about politics, I rolled my eyes. Yeah, Ethan, I don't know. Ethan's been really weird on politics. He kind of does have a lot of the, he kind of has a lot of like enlightened centrism bend to him, where he's definitely more liberal than conservative, but he has this like tendency to attack the left way more than attacking conservatives, at least recently. And he just like has, Ethan's politics go so far as, what is the current drama that I can talk about? I just meant it's quite helpful to have a live dialogue where viewers can jump in and add context or extra info while you're presenting. Wasn't a criticism of you. Yeah, I just don't have the time to live stream every day, so that's why I've been like making 2-hour videos and doing them as like posting my 2-hour videos as live premieres, so that people can have that chatting experience. And obviously, like, I'm not going to be able to respond to that because it's pre-recorded content, but at least like chatters can interact with each other. All right, goddamn, I'm not even 2 minutes into this content.
These are the same people who told us to defund the police, who told us that there wasn't a problem at the southern border, who told us that inflation was transient, whatever that means, and the same people who attacked me when I said that Biden should step.
Okay, is it just me, or does this man have insane eyes? He looks like he's about to have like a mental breakdown.
Step aside because he was going to lose this election. So we have to be willing to have these debates as the party. I mean, the Republicans are banning books. Democrats are banning debate. And if we don't have this debate now and come up with a winning strategy going forward, then the...
Oh my God. This is what I hate about conservatives, and I guess just people that are arguing in bad faith. They can just lie. Like, he's just lying and saying, well, Republicans are banning books, but while Republicans are banning books, Democrats are banning debate. How are they banning debate? You said something that's like extremely insensitive to a like tiny minority that is being persecuted right now by conservatives. And then you were called, like, people were calling for you to step down. If you say something insensitive and then people react to it, how is that banning debate? You're just being a bitch.
Republicans are going to wipe the floor with us in January, just like they did last Tuesday.
But there is so much, to your point, there is a lot of pushback from within your own party, and there are reports that your own campaign manager resigned. Can you shed any light on that? And was this kind of where you two parted?
No, I mean, the reality is that there's some very public pushback, while the vast majority of messages and emails and texts and conversations I've been having on the street are actually incredibly supportive. And this is all.
So then why are you saying that Democrats are trying to ban debate when you're saying the vast majority of interactions you're having with people are supportive? Which is honestly hilarious. Like, do you think there's a little bit of a selection bias there? The people that are going to reach out and like behind the scenes and like want to talk to you are going to be nice to your face?
From fellow Democrats, from colleagues in Congress, from some pretty senior members of the party and whatnot, who just say, "You're exactly right, Seth. This is our problem." You know, we try to cancel people rather than actually having debates about issues that Americans care about. And this is much bigger than just trans issues. I mean, this is about the economy. How is it that the Republicans are doing better on the economy, are more trusted on the economy, when Trump just wants to cut taxes for his billionaire friends and put massive tariffs in place that will raise prices, will increase inflation for everyday Americans? I mean, how is it that when Trump just wants to break up millions of families and communities across America by having these mass deportations, the Republicans are more trusted on the border? We've got to be willing to get back in touch with the majority of Americans, and we can't do that if we do all this preaching and not listening. We got to listen to him.
Oh God, this guy's so creepy. I mean, his solution for voters are misinformed is we got to stop preaching about trans people. Okay, well, that's what Kamala Harris did. Like, I haven't heard her say, like, talk about trans people at all. So, I mean, does he... I gotta speed this up. This guy talks like a tortoise.
American voters, engage them in this discussion. And what does it say to American voters if people in our own party can't even have this debate?
Well, and so, but to that end, did you lose staff over this debate?
Listening to voters is not taking your opinion to heart. Okay. Is he going to talk more about trans people? Most replayed. Let's go here.
Fair that, you know, transgender women or men are able to compete against their daughters who share these concerns, who think it's just unfair that, you know, transgender women or men are able to compete against their daughters. And so that's the debate.
All right, what is this?
And I've heard anecdotes from parents who've reached out to me over the past several days who share these concerns, who think it's just unfair that, you know, transgender women or men are able to compete against their daughters. And so that's the debate that we really have to have. And I think
I love that. Transgender women or men are able to compete against their daughters. So first of all, his evidence that Kamala Harris lost because of trans people is after he made anti-trans claims, then people reached out to him. And the people that reached out to him obviously don't have any experience with trans people playing against their children because, I mean, what he said doesn't make any sense. Transgender men or women playing against their daughters? I mean, are they adults playing against children? That seems like a lie that he just said.
Some reasonable questions about what's fair from a competitiveness perspective and also what's safe at those levels.
And so just broadening out before we let you go, just more broadly, I hear what you're saying about you want more debate. You want to be able to talk about these things. What do you say to the people in your party, though, who say this isn't up for debate? I don't want to debate these things. These are things I believe, and I don't think we should be even considering another position on this or a number of issues.
If you just keep preaching and talking down to people, if you just ignore the majority of voters, then that's fine. You can have that position, but we're going to keep losing elections. And in the business of politics, you actually have to win if you want to make change. And I really want to make change for the American people, and I want to protect people who are going to be attacked by Trump and the Republicans. We got to win elections to do that.
All right, Congressman Seth Moulton, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
It's like, I want to protect people that are going to be attacked by Trump and the Republicans. That's why I'm attacking those people instead. I'm going to protect them from Trump's attacks by attacking... Oh my God, do I really need to subscribe to this? Okay. Some Democrats are learning the wrong lessons from GOP's anti-trans attacks. Jen Psaki. Oh, this is written by Jen Psaki. There is obviously a lot of soul-searching going on right now within the Democratic Party, and that's a good thing. However, I do worry that in the course of soul-searching, some Democrats might reach the wrong sweeping conclusions. There are a lot of issues that could fall into that bucket, but one in particular is transgender rights. Republicans spent hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-trans ads this election cycle, including one that showed Vice President Kamala Harris talking about government funding for gender-reaffirming care for prisoners and detainees. If that sounds like a particularly obscure issue, that's because it is. It applies to only a tiny group of people. It's also a policy that was in place during the first Trump presidency. Anyway, I also want to play a clip from this where Cenk talks about trans people.
And the moonlight and shining lights and all that. There was nothing there. There was no meat on the bone, no substance. And that was her problem throughout the whole campaign. She had 100 days to show America, here's how I'm going to fix all your problems. Instead, she did.
Talking about a rainbow coalition. No, it wasn't a rainbow coalition. But I think that you saw white men still go big for Trump. You saw the Latino men, and I think that's the big story of the election. Latino men suddenly went towards Trump, and there were some black men. I think it was a male thing, and I think, again, the idea that he said offensive, vulgar things about women, the fact that he is, and, says he wants to be an authoritarian, that's all true. But I think a lot of the men said, you know what, we like it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, Professor Lichtman, you correctly forecast results of 9 of the past 10 US presidential elections, but not this one. Like most pollsters, I have to say, very, very few people predicted a big win, other than if I may be so modest, I did. I went on Fox News 10 days before Brian Kilby and said, I think he's going to win big.
Piers Morgan, I said that she won. I said that Trump would win. Anyway.
Professor Lichtman is right that it was a lot of disinformation pushed by a lot of bad actors in the right wing. But I think that Cenk and
there was hang on, Harry. There was disinformation from the left as well. When you keep calling him a Nazi,
but Piers, it's not to the same. It's not to the same level.
When you keep calling Donald Trump a Nazi and a fascist and all these things,
yeah,
people, as I still do, to have fairness and equality in their lives exactly the same as all of us on this panel. But when you keep telling people it is fair, on the one hand, Democrats said we protect women's rights on abortion. On the other hand, we're absolutely fine for women's rights in sport to be traduced at this ridiculous altar of biological men who are now trans women competing against women and beating them. You can't be both. So the public went, this is, and you're shaking your head, but look, the New York Times did a report about that ad, which the Trump campaign did so successfully and repeatedly. Kamala's for they, them, Trump's for you. They reckon it moved the needle by 2.5 points. It was the most successful and effective 30-second ad in modern political history. So people did care. And the Democrats were just too deluded, it seemed to me, because most of them, you must realize this issue of trans athletes in women's sport is wrong. You all know it's wrong. For some reason, you wouldn't get off that train. And that delusion was one of the reasons that you lost so badly, I believe.
But Piers, to Professor Lichtman's point, that ad in and of itself contained misinformation. The ad was saying, Kamala Harris wants to pay for prisoners' transgender surgeries.
All right, she said it a few years ago, but she said it.
But wait, hold on. In the New York Times also reported that this took place.
Yeah, I love the I love the idea of debating women's rights, women's issues with 5 men, and then they add Kyle Kalinske. Oh wait, we also have a woman. So 6 men and a woman.
Under Donald Trump's presidency as well, because depriving a trans prisoner the right to get gender-affirming care is, Cenk, it's a law, it's a constitution, is against the Constitution of the United States, preventing cruel and unusual punishment. Because if somebody is deemed medically necessary to receive care, no matter what that care is, and you ban it or say, no, you can't get it, that absolutely falls under cruel and unusual punishment. So Donald Trump did the same thing. And that's an example of the disinformation, or at least the lack of context that Trump's campaign...
Do you accept, Harry, do you accept that this...
Yes, Cenk, I'm sorry, yes.
But do you accept the so-called culture war stuff that I would frame as a kind of very, very far-left progressive woke stuff? That I've seen a lot of Democrats in the more centre part of the party coming out now and publicly saying what I was saying for a long time. Apparently Bill Clinton kept warning them internally. David Axelrod has come out and said, we've got to stop this. Joe Scarborough did a big monologue about it on Morning Joe. At some point, you've got to recognize that most average Americans just found all that stuff complete bullshit. And that's one of the reasons you lost. And you've got to move on from it.
I love this silent majority bullshit. Most Americans believe that that's complete bullshit. Okay, well, we just looked up the numbers. 83% of people in 2022 said that trans people should have the exact same rights as cis people. And what was it? Yeah, and 61% of Americans disagree that businesses should be able to refuse services to transgender people. So I'm sorry, Piers, the majority of people are not on your side in your anti-trans crusade.
You come back with another woke progressive platform in 4 years' time, you will be out of office potentially for 4 more, 8 more, maybe 12 more years. I promise you. Take it to the bank.
So, Piers, I agree to it.
And this is the issue with all of these people that all of these communists, and they're like, we need to get the Democratic Party out of power so that we can enact real change. We'll have the Republicans come in and then make things so much worse that the Democrats will now be forced to come to the left. Well, the Republicans Republicans love when Democrats lose, and Democrats honestly don't even really care if they lose, because a lot of the Democrat Congress people still have a job anyway. It's just not going to change. Like, all of the people that worked on these campaigns still have jobs. Like, they're just indentured into the Democratic Party. They're not going anywhere. And so there's no incentive to ever push the Democrats left. Like, conservatives aren't going to be like, oh yeah, you shouldn't keep running as like Republicans light. You should move to the left. You're not going to like, the Democratic campaign managers aren't going to be like, well, Republicans said that we should do this. Let's take their idea. They're going to, like, the Republicans are also always going to egg you on. You are too woke. You are too progressive. You're too in favor of trans rights. You should become more conservative. That's what Piers Morgan is saying. You ran on this woke agenda and you lost, so you should abandon it. And it's the exact same with Democrats. Like, we just watched that video of that guy, like, Moulton, who's a Democrat, and he was saying that we went too woke and we lost, so now we need to become more conservative and like throw trans people under the bus. So yeah, there's no like driving force to make the Democrats run on a more liberal, more progressive, more woke campaign.
Degree, but not in the way that you're framing it. I think that we do have to move on from a lot of the culture war stuff. I don't like the word woke, but I understand the context of using it. I think that yes, and to some degree we have to move on. But by moving on, we shouldn't throw people under the bus. We shouldn't say, oh, trans people are the reason why, or LGBTQ plus people are the reason why. That's not the reason why. It's just that the culture war stuff came off as very kind of gross to some Americans. They really didn't like it. So I agree to a degree, but not in the way that you're framing it.
Okay, let's talk about race, because it seems...
Can I get in here?
Well, one second, Shane.
Because
hang on. Okay. One thing, I'll come to you, Shane.
Bro, Chank definitely, he literally looks like a fucking Muppet. Like, there's someone's hand up there.
The issue of race. Many people found it extraordinary that a guy who a lot of people think is racist beat a black woman. And a lot of people that helped him win turned out to be a lot more black men voting for him than first time, and a lot more Latinos voting for him than the previous times. How important, if at all, was race in the end? Or was it actually a case of a lot of black and Latino people went, we don't care about all that stuff. What we care about is jobs, cost of living, illegal immigration, and so on.
Well, I think everybody cares about jobs, cost of living, inflation, and so on. And by the way, I don't think you're right about those numbers. I think there were more black men than black women who went towards Trump. But remember, they're still a small segment of the overall electorate. The big shift, actually, as I said,
case. But she refused to.
These Democrats are playing identity politics or whatever. I think the identity politics overwhelmingly is played by Donald Trump with white America.
Cenk, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, so look, I'm going to address what
Shaky Cougar.
but first, Harry,
My
I know
favorite
that the same
Thanksgiving
policy was under
dish.
Donald Trump, but that's not disinformation. That's for our candidate to go out there and clarify that and to fight back and to make her case. But she refused to make her case. She barely did any interviews. They were all incredibly structured to protect her fragile ego. All she did was talking points. Donald Trump's out there, sometimes like a maniac, but a lot of times looking like a real person at McDonald's and with a garbage truck. And our side goes, oh, that's terrible. No, it's not terrible. Those are great photo ops. When our guy is a...
Yeah, I don't think anyone said that, like, dressing up as a garbage man and working at McDonald's was terrible in terms of it being a good, like, publicity stunt. It was a great publicity stunt for Donald Trump. People were just making fun of him for it.
Or a person is a corporate talking robot. That is not helpful. We are misdiagnosing the case here. So when on these identity issues, the Republicans set traps. No, hold on. The Republicans set traps for us. So the great majority of the country is in favor of trans rights, and I'm 100% in favor of trans rights, and I bet you that the entire panel, including Piers, says that as well.
Yeah.
But when you go beyond rights and you say, hey, they dug and dug, they tried to find, hey, how about banning them from the military? Trump tried that in the beginning. It wasn't popular. Banning them from bathrooms, not popular. But they dug until they got to sports, and that was winning ground for them. And what I said is, guys, get out of there. It's a trap. You don't have to fight on that. You're falling into their trap. And what happened, as Piers can attest to, is everyone else on the left screamed, transphobe, fascist, Nazi. Let's dig in on our least popular position. That was terrible politics.
Totally agree with that.
Juan, I love you, brother, but it ain't about race. It ain't about race.
You know what?
Latino men didn't vote for...
Okay, so what's funny is Cenk is saying that it's not about race, and yet he is making the argument that it's somehow about trans people. It's not about race that the Democrats ran a black woman in a pretty racist country. It's not about gender that the Democrats ran a woman in a pretty sexist country. It's about trans people because why? The Republicans were running attack ads on trans people. I mean, the Republicans were also running attack ads on the fact that Kamala Harris was a woman and she was black, like that was a huge shocking point for Donald Trump. And the Democrats didn't take the bait on any of those things. The Democrats I never heard Kamala Harris defend trans people. I never heard her make a big deal out of the fact that she's a woman or that she's black and like Southeast Asian, or like she's black and Indian, right? And let's just talk about what Cenk is saying. He's what Shaky Yogurt is saying. He's saying that trans people are widely accepted by America because, as I said earlier, Americans do view themselves as kind of a live and let live type person. They're like, if you are, if you're doing your own thing, that's fine with me. So that's like their mentality. But Republicans did find a good issue on the issue of like trans people playing sports, because as much as Americans are like live and let live, they do see sports as a meritocracy and they want to believe that it's fair. I mean, there's nothing that people like doing more than complaining about how unfair the system is when their like favorite sports team loses a game of sports. So yeah, Cenk is right about that fact, where the Republicans were like pushing. They finally settled on the issue of trans people in sports, like, and specifically trans women in women's sports. And then he says that he wants Democrats to stop defending that. So the issue with not defending that is, if you are going to say, well, actually, like, trans women in women's sports don't have an advantage over cis women because of the hormone therapy that they did, which kind of prevents like muscle development, and also like that's the hormone, that's like the puberty blockers, and then the hormone replacement therapy that they've done effectively like reduces muscle mass and bone density over the course of like 6 months. And sports organizations that run these things, they'll be like, okay, well, you need to show to us that you're on this hormone regimen, and then you're fine, like you can participate. And essentially they're doing that to try to even the playing field as much as possible. Obviously sports aren't an actual even playing field. Anyone who believes that is delusional, but they're trying to even things out as much as possible. This is something that the Daily Wire found out when they were trying to make that movie of men playing in women's sports, where initially they wanted it to be a documentary where they actually got a group of men to participate in real life sporting events, but they found out that they couldn't do that, and they would have needed to actually go on to hormone therapy to be able to participate. And so like the Republicans that talk about women or trans women in women's sports are just lying. And even though that resonates with Americans, that's not something that the Democrats should just abandon and be like, you know what, you lie about everything and we try to refute it, but on this one issue that you're lying about, fine. Like that's such an effective lie. We're going to try. That's such an effective lie. We're going to just accept it and be like, you got us there. And the issue with that is, it's like the Republicans still are just going to lie. They're just going to push more and more. And if you concede like that trans women aren't actually women on this ground, then what's next? Trans women aren't women when it comes to using women's changing rooms, going to the women's bathroom, like having the word woman on their driver's license. It's just like you give an inch, they'll take a mile. They'll keep pushing. And even if you accept everything that they say, they're still just going to lie about you. Cis women in sports are huge. They're selected young. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love the idea that at the elite level, it's unfair. Like, you're talking about women in sports being unfair. Like, there are so many cis world-class athletes that have like a ridiculous level of testosterone. Michael Phelps is like a genetic freak, and he's being able to like swim so much faster because at elite level in sports, you are like, your genetic gifts do allow you to excel against your competitors. You're literally double speaking. They don't have any advantage, but you will allow them to be correct on that issue. What? I mean, what I'm saying is the Democrats would stop refuting the idea. Like, Cenk Uygur is basically saying you shouldn't push back against the idea that women, or that trans women, shouldn't be in sports. I mean, basically it's like this. Republicans will say live and let live, but what they actually mean is that, bro, I'm not saying women should compete against men. Obviously, there are biological differences in like the vast majority of women versus the vast majority of men. What I'm saying is that if you do hormone replacement therapy and you are on puberty blockers, there is no significant biological difference at that point. And that's actually the rules that are set up in place where trans women do compete against cis women. And then the other thing that I'm talking about with that guy like Moulton, that Democrat that we reacted to, he's talking about like, I don't want a trans woman to compete against, he said trans woman or man. So like, he's saying that I don't want a trans woman or man competing against my daughter in sports. First of all, there really isn't that much of a biological difference between like prepubescent boys and prepubescent girls. If you go on to like puberty blockers, then you're not going to develop and have like a really big biological difference and develop those secondary sex characteristics like more testosterone, bigger muscles, growing taller, like higher bone density, if you are a man. So anyway, I mean, what are you saying? That's just not true about hormone blockers. It's correct they shouldn't be in sports though. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is true. If you go on hormone blockers, it will like stop you from going through puberty. And if you do go on hormone replacement therapy, you can like test levels of bone density, muscle mass, and testosterone. And I think it's like 6 months into hormone replacement therapy, you're essentially at the same level as a cis woman. Yeah. They stop you from developing. That's the point of of puberty blockers. Like, I don't really see your point. Where do you draw the line then? I always heard mums on the sideline saying it wasn't fair that I was competing against them because of my genetic advantages. That's the other thing. When we're talking about genetic advantages in sports, it's like a never-ending conversation, right? And so why do you never hear about trans men competing in men's leagues? Well, because people just accept the fact that there's genetic advantages. And honestly, the whole topic of trans women in women's sports is pretty sexist in my opinion, because you are viewing women as like these delicate, fragile creatures that need to be protected, and they need to have all of these rules. I mean, the whole controversy with Imani Khalif boxing in the Olympics, well, she has, people would say that it's a man, right? So, but I'm just not gonna misgender her. So they would say like, well, she has this unfair advantage because she has like an X and a Y chromosome, and they have no evidence of that at all. But that's what they would be saying. Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, the biggest issue to me is, I guess my biggest talking points in terms of trans women in sports, hormone replacement therapy, like especially when combined with puberty blockers from a young age, pretty much eliminates any inherent advantage of having like an XY chromosome, of being assigned male at birth. And then the other thing that I would say is there's such a small group of trans athletes competing in all sports, and then very specifically like elite level sports. Like there's such a small group of that I honestly don't really care. And we already have issues with sporting legislation bodies ruling against cis women because their hormone levels are too high. So the whole system is messed up. And I'm not going to pretend like I have a quick, clean answer. But in terms of the way that we legislate like women's sports already, I think it's completely fine for trans women to compete. Yeah, it's a very valuable person, Harry Sisson. He's made some good points. We shouldn't shit on him that much.
Latino men didn't vote for Donald Trump because all of a sudden they like white people or orange people. They voted for him based on economic issues. Democrats only think in terms of identity, but that's not working anymore. The number one identity people care about is not Latino, black, or white. It's class. Are you going to do something for the average man, or are you going to sit there and play identity politics so you avoid the more important questions that your donors don't want to talk about that actually helps the average guy, like paid family leave and higher wages?
Okay, Professor Levin,
I don't get it, Sink.
So what I think is interesting about what Cenk is doing here is that he's saying the Democrats are too focused on trans rights. What they should do is focus on the economy. And I disagree with his analysis that the Democrats are too focused on trans rights. I do think that Kamala Harris purposely didn't focus on any kind of woke stuff, and she did purposely focus on the economy because she knew that was a big issue. Obviously, we had polling, people know that the economy is a big issue. The issue is he's misrepresenting the situation. The Democrats weren't focused on that. The Republicans were focused on it. The Republicans basically knew that the economy is kind of their strong point, and we don't have any real solutions to the economy. So we're just going to lie and say that yeah, just assume that the economy is going to get better under us. But look at how bad the Democrats are on trans people. They just lie about that. So I do kind of agree with Cenk that the solution is offering more material wins on the economy if you're a Democrat. You essentially, if you are defending trans people in debates, you're kind of losing, because if you're talking about trans people, that's just not a winning message. Obviously, I don't think you should demonize trans people, and I think that there should be conversations about trans people. But in terms of campaigning strategy, again, if the whole idea is that the Republicans are blowing this out of proportion, then maybe talk about, if you're going to kind of combat the Republican narrative on trans people, then maybe you should actually talk about the Republicans' obsession with them, being why are Republicans so obsessed with what's in your pants? Republicans want to check the genitals of your children as you send them to school. I think that would be a winning message. I honestly think that Democrats should run on the idea that Republicans are all pedophiles and they're all sex criminals, because it's true. Just look at Donald Trump's cabinet. Donald Trump, notorious sex criminal, found civilly liable for rape. Elon Musk wanted to pull out his dick on SNL. That's a joke, obviously. But he did pull out his dick for a flight attendant on his private flight, and then said he would buy her a horse if she kept quiet about it. RFK, when he was asked about if he sexually assaulted his babysitter, he said, "We all have skeletons in our closet." Obviously, I said it in a much more soothing and enjoyable way to listen to than how RFK would have sounded when he said it. But I think that could be a winning message. Jeffrey Epstein, buddies with Donald Trump. I think that the Democrats should really run on the idea that Republicans are all an elite cabal of sex criminals, and even throw Bill Clinton under the bus, because Bill Clinton was buddies with Donald Trump. Throw Elon Musk under the bus. Throw Bill Gates under the bus, because he was also friends with Jeffrey Epstein. And then you can wrap in that trans ideas with it too. Republicans are all a bunch of sex fiends. They're sex criminal perverts that are attracted to underage girls. They want to check your child's genitals at the school bathroom. They want to have a police officer there, feeling up your kid when they simply try to use the bathroom. That, I think, could be a winning message, because not only are you implicitly defending trans people there, but you're turning it, you're co-opting the narrative that Republicans have, that Democrats are all elite and they're all drinking children's blood and stuff like that. And the other thing is, if you do actually offer economic positions that will materially change people's living experiences in the United States, then they're going to be much less likely to actually want to do like hateful acts against minority groups. They're just going to not have time for that right now. But when you do have people working like 9 to 5 dead-end jobs where they're getting paid minimum wage and they can barely pay rent on time, they can't afford to do anything else, their only outlet really is to like join these hate groups. And like we can see how Donald Trump and the Republican Party have kind of harnessed this anger that's in this country about people's material conditions that they're living in and directed it at minority groups, directed it at the Haitians, directed it against all kinds of undocumented people, against trans people. If we just get rid of all of these people, then your life will be better. That's Donald Trump's message. And the Democrats really need to harness that same type of hatred and anger and direct it against pretty much just the capitalist class. And I think specifically against Donald Trump and the like sex criminals that he's surrounded himself with. All right, Jack, what do you got for me? I mean, it's like letting people with mental health issues like depression into the Paralympics. All the division of left, right, man, women is just pushing us away from our class consciousness for sure. I mean, dude, you're going to have to like reconcile with your unnatural hatred towards trans people on your own time. I'm sorry, I'm not going to like devote this much stream time to like working you through your issues with them. But yeah, just try to enjoy it.
I don't get it. You know, the reality is like Bill Clinton, Bernie Sanders.
Anyway, I just wanted to play that part from Jank because he's had some weird stuff to say. I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about, okay, guys, you can leave. I would not blame you if you leave the stream, but I think this is relevant to what we're talking about. I went onto Brett Cooper's channel today, and I really shouldn't have done it, but look at the title of this video. Hot Chick Wins. This is hilarious to me. The conservatives are now like, if there's a sexy woman on the screen, then if there's a sexy woman like getting celebrated, that's a win for conservatives. So I love that for them. I love the fact that they've like,
so I think I say this every single time we do one of
that they just take credit for sexy women now. I think that's so funny. Like, have you been to a Trump rally? Have you seen the women at Trump rallies?
These episodes, but it feels like so I think I say this every single time we do one of these episodes, but it feels like every couple of months we end up covering a pageant on the show, like whether it's because the person winning is a biological.
I love that, like, she's just outing herself there. Oh, every couple of months we cover a pageant on this show. Wow. You're doing great journalism. You're doing such good journalism.
Man, or whether they are doing over-the-top body positivity and inclusivity advocacy that undermines the whole meaning of a pageant. It is just never good. Like, I don't think we have covered a pageant that is positive at all in the entire time that
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Brett Cooper is closeted. Like, I feel like she has a little bit too much love for cis women in her life. Also, what is this? Isn't she supposed to be a trad wife? She's like 24. Shouldn't she be married and pregnant by now? And yet she's, I don't know. She's not married. She doesn't have a ring on that. Oh wait, she does have a ring on that finger. Well, she's not pregnant.
Doing the comment section. This was on Wednesday, November 9th, and it says transgender model wins local Miss America pageant for the first time ever. Miss America pageant, they've actually only had biological females win. Quite based, honestly, up until this point. I can't believe that is something.
Okay, this video is 8 minutes long. I don't think I'm going to get through it all. Okay. Is she going to say anything?
At the beginning of 2023.
Also, I love the fact that she's like, every single pageant has had a biological woman won on it. So we're going to bring up the one example where a trans person won. And now she's bringing up an example of a biological woman winning again. How is this newsworthy? I'm so interested how she's going to make this into a story.
When it was announced that Miss Universe, aka Trump's former pageant, had been purchased by a trans Thai business woman, in quotes. And at that point, everyone thought we were doomed. Like, I remember 2023, I remember reading about this and being like, oh my God, this whole place has just gone down.
Bro, what the fuck? She's having an existential crisis because her favorite beauty pageant was bought by a trans woman.
Hell, there was no hope. This was signaling that the crazy gender ideology had basically won. People were ready to throw in the towel. And, sure enough, later that year in 2023, Miss Universe welcomed their first transgender contestants and their first plus-sized contestants. But guys, a lot has changed from 2023.
Oh my God, dude. Okay. That's hilarious. She's mad that they welcomed their first plus-size contestant. Man, I love conservatives when they let their freak flags fly, because they're just, you can learn so much about them. They're like, oh, a trans woman bought the beauty pageant, so we're screwed, right? Trans ideology is going to infest every single part of my favorite pastime, which is watching. I mean, I hope they're above 18. I hope it's not like child beauty pageants that she's talking about. But it's infesting my favorite pastime, which is watching the objectification of women in its purest form. And then she's like, a trans woman got in. That's a bad sign. A fat woman got in. That's a bad sign. And what I love about this is it's just saying, okay, you just want to have, again, you just want to have like hot people be exemplified, and you want to push every person that you don't find like visually appealing out the wayside. And it's more than just visual, right? It's like another level of control over people. If you do not conform to my worldview on how women should look, then you are like a reprobate. You are you're like resisting my societal view that we should have.
2023 to 2024, and now is not the time to take the black pill, because you have to see who won Miss Universe in 2024. Before we dive into this story, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the comment section channel. Winning after the election.
Also, what do you think the product that she's going to be advertising in this video is? Makeup? Maybe like a hair curler or something like that.
I mean, culturally, obviously, that is not a good thing. That's actually really horrifying. But today, we're going to focus on the pageant queens, because that is actually a win. Guys, you need to see Miss Denmark, a.k.a. the newly crowned 2024 Miss Universe. Just watch. So that's her getting crowned. Biggest pageant in the world. She's stunning. God, I love women. They're just so stunning. I love seeing them all up on a stage.
Bro, Brett Cooper is gay. What the fuck is this? Why are you saying you love women? You're supposed to be a trad wife, aren't you? Like, I don't know, man. You should not be talking about how much you love women. It's giving off some bad vibes. All you do is talk about women all day. I think you're obsessed with them.
I love seeing biological real women. It is fantastic. So guys, Miss Denmark, now Miss Universe. Her name is Victoria. She is 21. She is truly stunning. And yes, she is a biological woman. And you might be thinking, okay, yeah, Brett, what's new? She's a hot, blonde pageant girl. What's the twist? Guys, that is the twist. Because this hasn't been normal in years. I mean, between pageant queens having wangs and plus-size contestants taking home the crown just because of their victim status, and white women getting slandered and mocked, the pageant world and womanhood in general.
Bro, I love this. I love this so much. They're like, white women they're getting mocked, right? Because they're too hot, they're too white. It's the fat people, it's the non-white people, it's the trans people. They're the real perpetrators. White women are just the victim because they're no longer winning these. But now there's a hot biological woman, and she won the pageant. So we can all celebrate. The world is right again. It's been reverted back to its proper axis, and with white women at the top and trans people, fat people, and non-white people. I mean, if you have lighter skin, that's fine, but if you're like one of those really dark non-white people, then you gotta go. And it's just, man, it's just Brett Cooper like doing her job as the more female arm of the Daily Wire propaganda wing, propping up white people at the top of the hierarchy. And if you do not conform with this view of conservative like femininity, then you gotta go out the wayside. And what's gross is it's like Shank and that Democrat and a lot of other people are kind of agreeing with that. Yeah, we shouldn't really be talking about trans women. We should not focus on like women in sports because it's just not what Americans want to hear. They're almost adopting the idea that we do need like these attractive white feminine people at the top.
As you all know, has been turned upside down. I mean, we have had mailboxes.
Finally, a real Aryan back on top. One that wouldn't be put in the camps.
Had men on women's volleyball teams. We have had men joining sororities. Dylan Mulvaney winning Woman of the Year awards. It has been an insane few years that we have been covering on the show.
Dylan!
So very beautiful, very normal Victoria from Denmark has been a breath of fresh air for people online. It is like a signal.
Yeah, and it's like this whole thing with when Sydney Sweeney hosted SNL. Oh, look at that, a hot woman, like a hot blonde white lady with big boobs is featured prominently on like liberal television. And it's really comical because it shows just how threatened and weak these people are. So, you know, if I see like a black person or even a trans person on TV, I'm like, oh, like sometimes I wouldn't even notice it. Sometimes I would notice it. Like in One Piece, the character Kiku is trans, assigned male at birth, but very feminine presenting on the show. And that was noticeable because that's like One Piece has done trans people in the past and they've been problematic, to say the least. Let's just say problematic. But it's like, okay, that's a really cool character. And I do notice that they're trans because of the way trans people were depicted in the past in One Piece. But I do not get threatened by it. I don't think it's like, I think it adds to the diversity of the world, it adds to the world building, and it makes it a more interesting story if we have like different characters with different backstories and like just more diversity. I think it makes it really cool. If a conservative sees that, they would think that's an affront to their worldview and they would feel personally attacked. And the way that I always say it is, it's like, conservatives or people would say, live and let live. Conservatives would say, I'll live the way I want to live and you live the way that I want you to live too. That's like the core of the conservative worldview. And if anyone is living the way that they don't want them to be living, that's a personal attack on them. And if you just kind of like internalize that idea, then a lot of conservative policies become way more, you can understand where they're coming from more.
That normalcy is returning, that nature is healing. And the posts celebrating all of this and showing her win have returning, that nature is healing.
And I love that too. It's like the beefy arms of two guys grabbing each other.
And the posts celebrating all of this and showing her win have literally racked.
Kiku is a boss. Yeah, I love Kiku so much. Also, I'm trans, and to be fair, Oda has come a long way in his presentation of trans people. Kikunojo has the epitaph most beautiful samurai in Wano. Yeah. Yeah, I love One Piece so much. It's like probably my favorite manga/anime.
Millions upon millions upon millions of views all across social media. AF post tweeted this and said, Denmark's Victoria Fjellvig wins Miss Universe 2024, the first blue-eyed, blonde-haired woman to win.
What are these posts? They specifically comment that she's blue-eyed, blonde hair. And I love that I love the assumption with this post like this, first blue-eyed, blonde-haired woman to win in 20 years, is that this is the world returning to normalcy. It's not the fact that that the world is a diverse place and people have a very diverse understanding of beauty, and different women can be beautiful for different things. Everyone has their own set of attractive preferences. And then they're saying, finally, an Aryan won. It's like Aryans are back on top. Now we can celebrate. The world has returned to normal. That's literally what Brett Cooper is saying. So what, like non-white skinned woman winning is not normal? That's the implication here. And so when Brett Cooper says a hot biological woman finally wins a beauty pageant, she missed a few words here, right? She missed Aryan. She missed white-skinned, blonde-eyed, blue-eyed, blonde-haired woman.
20 years, which is just wild and so funny. And obviously, I'm not saying that blonde-haired, blue-eyed women are the only people that should win pageants, but just considering the state of the world and what's been going on, it's very, very funny. We have to acknowledge that. But I mean, just look at her. She absolutely deserves to win.
Then why would you highlight a tweet that specifically called out the blonde-haired, blue-eyed part of her? They didn't say biological woman in 20 years because there have really only been biological women. They didn't say the first non-plus-sized women in 20 years. She literally is like, oh, look at this tweet. First blonde-eyed, blue-eyed, or blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman to win in 20 years. She's like, yeah, that's so true. Obviously, I'm not saying that that's all that matters, but I mean, the tweet that I brought up here is saying that.
Is stunning. Her skin is flawless.
Brett Cooper's like, some brown-eyed people and black-haired people could win too. It doesn't have to be only the blondes. She's like, can I win, please?
Looks like she exclusively eats meat from Good Ranchers because anybody who cares about their health knows.
Oh, I was wrong. I said it was going to be a hair product. It's a meat delivery service. We got to get back. My favorite part of Daily Wire videos is listening to their unhinged transitions into advertising. They're like, the Aryan will bring peace back onto the world, just like you can bring peace back to your stomach with our own homegrown grass-fed beef.
Very, very funny. We have to acknowledge that. But I mean, just look at her. She absolutely deserves to win. She is stunning. Her skin is flawless. She looks like she exclusively eats meat from Good Ranchers because anybody who cares about their health knows that good...
Her skin is flawless, just like, it's almost like she eats meat from Good Ranchers. Yeah, the meat sponsors on this video. And that's the best transition you had. That's hilarious. That's so funny. God, I love Daily Wire videos.
Because you're eating such amazing high quality meat. And the comments have just been amazing. This girl said, can we call this the Trump effect? I can't believe this. Miss Universe is a...
Oh my God. Why is she even reading this? Okay, well, I mean, I guess her show is named The Comment Section, so I shouldn't be surprised that she's reading like fucking brain dead comments.
Woman this time. Somebody else said, we even have a real woman as Miss Universe 2024. Thank you, President Trump, for bringing back sanity to this world. And obviously, Trump didn't do this. He's no longer involved in Miss Universe or anything like that, but he has certainly played a huge role in this massive cultural shift that has taken place in the latter half of 2024. I mean, considering that we all felt so far gone leading up to this year, watching the insanity settle down, watching him win, watching normalcy return, it is pretty refreshing. And honestly, thinking of how I felt in 2023, it is shocking. It is shocking how quickly things can change when people finally wake up to...
Okay, so, man, obviously Brett Cooper's just lying about this, but I just looked this up really quick because I was curious. This is the list of Miss Universe winners since its inception in 1952. And we can just take a look. 2024, Denmark, Maria Victoria Kjartilvig. She's a Danish model. All right. She's 21. Then in 2023 from Nicaragua, Shanis Alondra Palacios Cornejo, Nicaraguan model and beauty pageant title holder. Robney Gabrielle. Okay, she's not trans, from U.S. Harnaz Karasandu, Indian actress. I mean, are any of these Miss American beauty pageant holders trans? Miss Universe. Okay, so there are candidates. Have any transgender women won? Mulvaney, wait, this is about... What the fuck? Oh. Are there any transgender contestants in Miss Universe? Ricky Cole of the Netherlands and Marina Pageant of Portugal, who became the joint second transgender women to compete in the pageant. So there have literally been no Miss Universe winners that are trans. So I don't know what this video is talking about. Like, okay, there's some contestants, but then why are they talking about the winner? It's literally just there's a white woman. Like, as you said, it's an Aryan woman, Matt. Like, you called it out. It's literally just they're celebrating an Aryan woman won. White, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, hot. I mean, I don't even want to say hot, because all of these Miss Universe winners are hot. So it's literally just racism. That's all they're talking about.
You tap into their emotions and you give them something to love that is worth fighting for, which, in my opinion, is what Trump did expertly this fall. And that made shockwaves around the world. Now, I also loved this.
Jesus Christ. What the actual fuck is she talking about at this point?
I mean, considering that we all felt so far gone leading up to this year, watching the insanity settle down, watching him win, watching normalcy return, it is pretty refreshing. And honestly, thinking of how I felt in 2023, it is shocking. It is shocking how quickly things can change when people finally wake up to the BS, when you tap into their emotions.
Okay, so just as a ginger one, no gingers allowed. So just, again, she's talking about how in 2023 she was feeling despondent. This is the winner in 2023. Like, she looks pretty fucking hot to me. And Brett Cooper, like, she's a biological hot woman. Maybe Brett Cooper doesn't like her, though, because of, she's not her type. She's a little, she's not Brett Cooper's type. Let's just leave it at that. Brett Cooper's type is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and white-skinned. That's what Brett Cooper's type is.
And you give them something to love that is worth fighting for, which, in my opinion, is what Trump did expertly this fall. And that made shockwaves around the world. Now, I also loved this comment that the New York Post included in their article.
Yeah, she's from Nicaragua, too, so that's an
Unfortunately, I
L
did not find the
Brett
original
Cooper.
commenter on X, but this user put it well and said, let's not overlook the reality here. Beauty pageants were once a celebration of grace, poise, and yes, natural femininity. Yet today, it seems the mere notion of a healthy, traditionally beautiful woman embracing this role has become some kind of cultural shockwave. It is a strange world when the standard becomes the exception, you know? It truly is. Like that, we've been living in the upside down. And that is why it is so important to remember that things...
I love Brett Cooper's level of journalism. She's reporting on one user commenting on X. That's the reporting that Brett Cooper is doing. It's amazing.
Has become some kind of cultural shockwave.
We don't need to listen to this again.
Still work to be done. Like, a woman winning a women's competition should not be a reason for celebration, just like a woman competing against women in sports or a real woman winning Woman of the...
I love this. It's like, why are we celebrating this? We should have no reason to celebrate it. Okay, yeah, I agree. But we're doing it anyway because of trans people or something like that. Jesus Christ. Shoe on Head's really interesting too, because I think she kind of like does similar stuff, maybe not as unhinged, and a little bit like more open to criticism. So I do think Brett Cooper's content is more for women. If we take a look at Brett Cooper's channel, what do we got? Oh, Imani Khalif, it's official. He's, man, Jesus Christ. Libs are trying to use witchcraft to defeat Trump. Yeah, I think that Brett Cooper's content is for people like Shoe on Head that are like, I support men, not like these other bitches that are just man-hatey all the time. Leftists are leaving. What Trump's UFC night says about America. I don't know. Do any of these videos sound interesting? I kind of want to watch his Witches Be Gone, but we'll come back to that later. But I mean, the point of this stream, the thing that I wanted to talk about on this stream is the whole idea of men rejecting the Democratic Party, and what the deal is with that, and is it related to trans people? Are we too woke? Is it related to cis women being too man-hatey? And I mean, we just need to reconcile the fact that both men and women left the Democratic Party, and minority groups left the Democratic Party as well. They still, like, on a whole, minority groups support the Democrats, but in this last election, a lot of things shifted, and ultimately it is the economic issues. And what God damn it, I just saw your comment. She was conceived from Ben Shapiro's rib. But I mean, I guess my thesis would be, while it is entertaining to see these people's commenting on like the culture war stuff, like trans people, like men versus women, like that's the men versus women is the beginning and the end of the culture war. That's going to be there forever. And people are always going to be commenting on it because you're always going to have people that are insecure about their relationships with the opposite gender. If you're a man, oh, well, I don't know if women like me. If you're a woman, I feel like I'm not pretty enough, or I feel like I don't fit in. It's the exact same thing. It's just preying on people's insecurities in their position in the world and their like close society, like the people around them. So ultimately, like, while it is fun to read through this, I do think it is irrelevant, and I'm not saying that the Democrats need to run on this campaign of we're going to give state-sponsored girlfriends to every young man between the ages of 18 and 29. I don't think that's a winning message for the Democrats, and ultimately, I think that the Democrats should just like do sweeping economic changes if they actually want to get support again. So I don't think any of this matters, and it is going to be fun to talk about, but again, I don't think it really matters. However, there is kind of an upswell right now where you do have a lot of economic insecurity, and that's leading to social insecurity, and because of that, you are getting interest in people talking about, oh, well, a white woman, like an Aryan woman, won the beauty pageant again. That's something that we should celebrate. You're going to talk about how the women on The View are hating men, or there's women on TikTok that are shaving their heads bald. Isn't that crazy? Let's embrace classic femininity and talk about how men deserve better from the Democrats. There is a market and an audience for that kind of content. And so you do get stuff like, it's official, he's a man. This was 2 weeks ago, and they're still talking about this. A hot biological woman finally wins a beauty pageant. We have Shoe on Head that does the man problem, the cougar epidemic. Are men more shallow than women? America is in shambles. That's like, probably has to do with men as well. The war on normal guys, female loneliness and how to fix it. That's like all Shoe and Head's content is. You have this guy saying that we need to attack trans people more. This was hilarious. This was recommended to me. I kind of want to go through this, honestly. Gladiator 2 turned its back on masculinity. I love that type of stuff. And then the last thing... Whoa, what is this? Oh, yeah, red pill to Catholic. Comment section. So, yeah. Basically, it's like economic insecurity leading to social insecurity, and people are up for this kind of content. So, I don't know. Has anyone watched this video? This was just recommended to me. I haven't seen Gladiator 2 yet. Gladiator has no sequel. Gladiator needs no sequel. I love how women are often portrayed as archers in pseudo-historical films. Oh, women in fantasy shoot bows and arrows, but in real life, you need more upper body strength for bows and arrows, and so it was men only. Wow, great job. All right, what time is it? Okay, I guess we have time to do this. Let's just watch it.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you were here?
No, not really. Greetings, friends. What's going on? I've just got back from the very first showing of Gladiator 2 at my local cinema, and to cut to the chase, it failed to live up to the original.
Well, imagine my surprise.
But more importantly, it's failed men and
Okay, so that's funny. He's like, it failed to live up to the original. I've heard some reviews of Gladiator 2. I've heard it is pretty good. Haven't seen it myself. And then the guy's like, but more importantly, it failed men. Okay, so I could kind of see where you're coming from here. I don't think your main criticism of it is that it wasn't a good movie. Because, yeah, I heard it was a good movie.
Masculinity. Allow me to explain, but just before I do, let's remind ourselves of the original movie, shall we? You remember that, right? The original Gladiator had a solid story, the dialogue was competent, it had suitably resplendent sound design, it was almost entirely practically shot, Steadicams and Russian arms weren't built the same back then, and I absolutely love it. The turbulent jankiness complements the fact it's shot on film beautifully. It's raw, it's unpolished, as is the setting. It's very fitting. Those old Arri cameras give it that earnest analog look that has become synonymous with a fulfilling Saturday night. The shot composition is fairly typical typical, but the costumes, set dressings, and general sense of theatre make up for a lack of flamboyance in that regard. You won't find any Dutch angles in this Italia. It's basically John Wick circa 200 AD, and that's fabulous. There's almost enough John Wick movies to make a legion. So a Gladiator sequel should be an open goal, right? Well, not exactly. The problem with the original Gladiator movie is that it's far too masculine. And it's far too pleased to be so. The story of Maximus waters the very roots of male nature. The idea that a man would find a way to overcome and or sacrifice anything and everything, including himself, for the sake of his family and honor. The staunch friendship and loyalty that men are capable of. Compassion and camaraderie. The original Gladiator explores almost every facet of masculinity and the consequences inflicted upon us by those who cower from it. This is, of course, completely forbidden by today's modern dogma.
This is so stupid. He's literally just described what happened in Gladiator and said that that's a celebration of masculinity because it's a man that's going through it. It's a man who has these close friendships with people. It's a man who goes on revenge to try to avenge his family. That nothing that he's saying has anything to do with masculinity, and you could say that about literally any movie, even movies with female characters. Like, you could talk about how Tarzan is so masculine because it shows off his, like, the animated Disney Tarzan. It shows his loss and his search for acceptance as a masculine person, and how when he finally meets, like, a feminine woman, it's his masculine urge to try to form a relationship with her through all of these struggles of his familial disputes with her family and stuff like that. Like, nothing. I don't know. Like, there's so many movies designed for men. It's extremely easy to see yourself as a man, and so when you see a movie, it's almost like the assumption is that it is written for, like, the male gaze and for men to identify with the character. But also, like, people just identify with movie characters. You can, you don't have to be a man to identify with a man character, and you don't have to be, like, white to identify with a white character. You don't have to be black to identify with a black character. Obviously, the norm is kind of like the white male protagonist, and so people that aren't white and male have kind of accepted that they need to identify with that person because they do go through identifiable struggles. And then when we have media and movies and TV shows that deviate away from the norm and the protagonist isn't a white male, then people like this douchebag online will be like, you are sacrificing men. You are making it more difficult for men to, like, you're throwing men under the bus, essentially. You're making it more difficult for men to relate with what your message is and stuff like that. But I mean, like, I don't know. Media in movies, it's more for the human experience. And when you do have cases where it's like featuring minority characters prominently, that does allow people, like minorities that are watching that, to relate to the person, and they can relate to some of the more specific struggles that minority character goes through for being a minority. It's not a rejection of men, it's not a rejection of masculinity and whiteness, but it is like an embracement of and an acknowledgement of different people that are watching the movie too.
What, you want to make a movie, you know, bolstering and celebrating raw testosterone, painting masculinity as an incontestable force for good? Ha! Don't make me laugh, you bastard! Yes.
Okay, so Gladiator 1, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't think the theme of that movie is that masculinity is good. Like, you can talk about how masculinity and the whole idea of the gladiator pits is like a cultural artifact of toxic masculinity, of how the emperor is extremely masculine and he wants to like prove his masculinity by taking away like the main character's family, killing him, humiliating him. Like, there's a lot of aspects of that movie that's bad. And this guy this guy's setting up a straw man, essentially. He's saying that yeah, why is he doing a YouTube video exactly? He's saying that the first movie was an embracing of masculinity, and the message of that movie is that masculinity is good. Thus, he's setting up this false like memory of the first movie so that he can have an easier time of attacking this movie by pointing at any single thing that he can identify as not being masculine as now being a negative to the movie.
Fortunately, unadulterated masculinity was lost to the riptide of modernity a long time ago, I'm afraid. Even if he could still make good films, so Ridley Scott set himself an impossible task.
It just has
a movie with themes that simply cannot be allowed to exist in today's environment. And like I mentioned, the original committed the cardinal sin of not only promoting masculinity, but also warning us of men who do not possess and or strive for masculinity. Absent fathers, the desperate need for affection and approval that can often cripple men, and the fickle arrogance and
Bro, what the fuck? The desperate need for affection and approval is not masculine? Isn't that the whole idea of masculinity, that you need to like show off how masculine you are and people will approve of you, they'll recognize you as an important member of society, look to you for guidance, and like have affection for you? It's like that's so emasculating, wanting to have approval from your father. That's fucking hilarious.
Trail that some are capable of. Throughout the movie, masculinity is painted as a source of strength and redemption. Hell, even the slave driver embraces masculinity when the time comes and dies with honor. But never mind that, because this is the 21st century and we of course cannot have nice things. And also,
I love how he says like the guy embraces masculinity and dies with honor. Okay, so he embraced honor then. He didn't embrace masculinity. Like, it's so stupid. Again, it's like religious thinking where this guy wants to come away with the message that masculinity is good. So any good thing that he sees in Gladiator, he can say is masculine. Any bad thing he sees in Gladiator, like the bad guys, the weak, sniveling emperor, that's not masculine. And so then the message of the movie is that masculinity is good. And I mean, I can't wait to see his analysis of Gladiator 2.
So, man bad. Don't be a man.
Right, Maximus does get emasculated.
Man. Don't be a man bad. Bad man. And talking of Ridley Scott, what happened?
I mean, what evidence is he going to give us that Ridley Scott makes the case that masculinity is bad in this sequel? And yeah, I think this guy just saw the movie and he's like, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I can to make a video saying that masculinity is bad in Gladiator 2.
Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator, the guy was batting. And now he's going the way of the Tim Burton. He has the same story arc as Coldplay. I couldn't even force myself to finish watching two of his latest movies. The absolute snooze fest that was Napoleon. And don't even get me started with The Last Duel. Thank God that duel was the last. It took me 3 sittings to get halfway through. And even then I ended up giving up.
It vexes me. I'm terribly vexed.
And that brings us on to the sequel. And if I could explain Gladiator 2 in one sentence, it would be this one sentence from Gladiator 1.
You have a great name. He must kill your name before he kills you.
So, come and sit upon my lap and let's discuss.
I don't think this guy's funny. I mean, can we get to the actual review of the second movie?
And on the eve of battle, this same woman is refused the right to make an offering, unlike all of her fellow. Stunning and brave. It turns out that this couple not only farm together, but fight together as well. That, yes, she's also a soldier. because of course she is. And on the eve of battle, this same woman is refused.
Yeah, I don't know. What the fuck does that mean? Like, none of his jokes make any sense, and he talks in like this pseudo-intellectual way where I'm saying a combination of multiple words that makes me sound smart, but you're not saying anything intelligent, are you?
The right to make an offering, unlike all of her fellow male soldiers, because we need to smash the patriarchy or whatever. But of course, we couldn't have a 2,000-year-old battle scene without having a woman join in as well. Thank you, Gladiator 2. Very cool.
Wait, I love this guy's criticism. So he's like, they're having a woman as a soldier. Isn't that dumb? Because of course she's a soldier, right? Oh, this is so historically inaccurate. A woman soldier? And then he goes on to say in the next sentence, and she gets discriminated against because of the patriarchy. It's like, okay, so do you want women to be discriminated against, or do you want them to have like equal rights and fight as a soldier? Like, they're obviously picking a woman to be a soldier to display the patriarchy and examine its effects on people. And he's like criticizing both halves of this. Yeah, he looks so pleased with himself.
Funnily enough, this female warrior uses a bow and arrow and misses all but one shot that she makes while she's on screen. What are you trying to say, Ridley? Huh? And I'm not sure how to put this other than...
I love this, because if she hit every single shot, then he would say, well, she's a Mary Jane. She's just too overpowered, and they're trying to show her as a woman that can't do anything wrong. And that's like that's a character stereotype that we've been pushing against. We don't like that in today's day and age, because we have because people are like overcompensating for the lack of women representation. So now whenever a woman's on screen, she has to be over the top and amazing at everything. But they didn't, apparently, again, I haven't seen this movie, but apparently in this movie, they didn't do that. And so now he's criticizing Ridley Scott for being sexist because she missed every single one of her shots. I mean, it's not like there's a trope in movies where characters are notoriously bad at aiming to increase the dramatic tension of the movie.
Then hyper-polished modern filmmaking just doesn't lend itself to historical battle scenes very well. It's too clinical, too stable, too clean, everything that a battle is not. Then, to his horror, the protagonist's wife dies in battle because, of course, I mean, she didn't die at home with the kid like in the original movie. Boring. She don't need no man. She died in war because...
Yes! Queen! Slay!
It's also worth noting that...
What? I'm honestly so confused. Like, you said she's a soldier, and so now you're criticizing the soldier for dying in war rather than dying at home alone, like with kids. I mean, this guy is pretty clearly just making this video to bait an audience, right? To rile his audience up of people that, oh, a woman's on screen, a black person is on screen, black Vikings. I can't deal with that. White people only.
A character has yet to be properly established, so we just do not care that his wife's died. We know essentially nothing about anyone, and the only thing we do know is that the protagonist isn't as gentle as he could be. So yeah, it's not quite enough to make us care, so it's already trailing behind the original. To make things even more modern and stunning and brave, Pedro Pascal's character, General Acacius, is then ashamed that he won the battle. Good job you work in the military then, mate. The first movie is centered around the fragility of Commodus being an existential threat.
Bro, like, showing someone's like guilt for massacres is now, according to this man, stunning and brave. I'm honestly done with this. I mean, this guy is pretty clearly not doing that in good faith. Doesn't really, like, I would rather react to the critical drinker, because I feel like he actually cares about some of that stuff. That guy's just like making stupid jokes. Anyway, I want to talk about this Catholic guy because he's hilarious. This Catholic guy is so funny. And he's interviewing this guy. So, red pill to Catholic, embracing true patriarchy. So again, the theme of this video is patriarchy and how any kind of representation of non-white, non-like idealistic people is an affront to conservatives. So if there's a hot woman, it's fine as long as she's white and has blonde hair and blue eyes. If we're talking about sports, can't have trans people in sports at all. If we're talking about movies, you cannot have a woman soldier. She needs to be barefoot and pregnant at home, caring for another child while the man is off fighting his enemies or hunting a pig or something like that. And what I like about this guy, so this guy is Matt Fradd. I've been listening to his channel for a while. He's hilarious. He's a really stupid guy. He made his name for himself fighting against porn because he was addicted to porn as a teenager, and then he went to World Youth Day, saw a girl that he thought was hot, wanted to marry her. She was a Catholic, and he eventually married her. Yeah, exactly. Like, this guy hates his kids. It's so funny. There are so many times where I'll be listening to his podcast and he'll say that well, don't all men have a moment every now and then where they just want to pack all of their belongings and leave their wife and kids at home and go off and live in the wilderness? But I don't do that because I'm a responsible parent. I stay because of the responsibility conferred upon me by God. It's like, brother, people do not have that inclination to just like abandon their wife and family. So, this guy's hilarious. I've made some videos about him, honestly, and he's actually reacted to the videos, which I thought was hilarious. I have this video on my channel, which is just a clip of him, and it's a clip of him saying how disgusted he is at gay people. And then he talked, and he's like, there's a video of me with my face and two men kissing, and I just can't do it. So he's a cute little guy. He's really dumb. But the reason that I'm talking about him is that he obviously, as a Catholic Christian guy, he does like the whole patriarchy thing. He doesn't like women wearing ripped jeans. He doesn't like girls with their hair dyed. And he'll say some unhinged things. This is like the most purest, unadulterated, conservative content you can get. He's talked with Ben Shapiro before. He's talked with Dennis Prager before. He's interviewed Jordan Peterson. His producer is in love with Brett Cooper. So you can kind of see what kind of content he's doing here. This guy doesn't have any exposure to the outside leftist world. And because of that, you can hear him saying some really unhinged stuff. So, like, what is the stuff that he said before? He's talked about how he'd rather have his children growing up as a fundamentalist Muslim and join ISIS than be an atheist, because at least if they are like a radical Islamist terrorist, then they believe in something, whereas an atheist just believes in nothing and they're soulless. He's interviewed this guy, which I have, like, one of these days I have to do a live stream where I cover that interview. It's a guy who taught high school, and he's talking about how, like, he walked into a room full of young girls, because of course, like, the high school he teaches at is segregated, and he just goes up there and he says, I could kill all of you right now if I wanted to, because I'm a man. And then he's talking about how he goes to like the high school dance and he shows off his guns, like his hunting guns to the high school kids, and they all think he's so cool. I'm like, this man should probably not be allowed anywhere near a school. But anyway, it's hilarious. Yeah, I like how he titled this video Red Pill to Catholic. I wonder how he'd feel if he knew trans women wrote that red pill, blue pill option. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that would just break his brain.
Realization why this is saved for this sacrament, this indissoluble union. It was just,
that's wonderful.
Man,
I want to get back to that, but before we do, let's move on to the red pill, because we're going to title it this.
Sure.
I asked my local supporters if they had any questions for you, right? And a lot of people just don't know what the red pill even means. So maybe we could begin there. What is that?
Yeah. So I think where people get confused with the red pill is they think red pill. They're like, what do you mean that's not the red pill? I said, no. Guys like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, guys that are kind of waking people up from like the psyop that is mainstream media. Like you're being red pilled politically. Yeah. That's like, I guess, the more traditional term for red pill. Like you're kind of coming to the realization, this awakening. Obviously, this is a reference to the Matrix, the red pill and the blue pill. The red pill, like you're awake to like the cold reality of the world, and the blue pill, you kind of stay blissfully ignorant.
Right.
Now, as it relates to, this version of the red pill, if you will, guys like Andrew Tate and Rollo Tomassi, people like that, it's a branch of the manosphere, and the manosphere started as like pickup artistry, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so it relates essentially to sexual dynamics between men and women, and how the world is governed by this gynocentric world order, that feminism rules the legal system, and marriage is rigged against men, and that men have been psyoped, masculinity has been psyoped, and that there's been this
Bro, this is some new lore for me. It's a gynocentric world order where the legal system is run by feminists and the marriage is rigged against men. That's new to me.
Effort to sort of subvert masculinity. It's either toxic or they're trying to turn all these guys into like these simpy little nice guys. And then there's, this concept of hypergamy where, women usually date up and they're always looking to branch swing to the more superior mate and sort of waking men.
Bro, I love like this manosphere men's rights activist, like pickup artist type of guy trying to indoctrinate a Catholic conservative guy. This is going to be really interesting. I haven't seen this before, but I can't wait.
And up to the cold, hard realities of dating, sexual dynamics between men and women. But it's really oriented toward women and it's sort of how bad they are. They'll all argue with me because it's like Andrew Tate's not red pill. This guy's not red pill. So there's kind of like this.
We just spoke about fragmentation in
That's
different
right.
groups. Here's another example.
Exactly. And what I will say is that from a diagnostic perspective, they don't get a lot of these things wrong. A lot of these things are correct, right? There is this kind of gynocentric world order. You know, as Father Ripper said, like feminism is sort of the manifestation of hell on earth. Like we've seen how it's just destroyed our culture from the very beginning.
Bro, feminism is hell on earth. It's the manifestation
you know, as Father
of hell
Ripper said,
on
like
earth.
feminism is sort of the manifestation of hell on earth. Like we've seen how it's just destroyed our culture from the very beginning of the Seneca Falls Convention, where it's how do we, destroy the family? Well, we chop off the head of the patriarch. And so if there's no head of the family, we can kind of effectively control men and women and remove women from the household, indoctrinate them into thinking that it's better for them to have careers and to take care of their families, and that they should rule over their husbands and not the other way around. And now you see this sort of like inversion. So they're not exactly wrong. It's the prescriptions that become utterly degenerate that, ultimately will have your soul in the depths of hell if you allow it to go too far to its natural end.
So how did you buy into this? Where were you? How old were you? What happened?
So I'm a product of many of these men of like the single mother household. My grandfather, who's my hero, immigrant Italian guy, taught me a lot about being a man, but these sort of intricacies of the courtship and marriage and being virtuous. He's from a farm in southern Italy. Man, God bless him. He taught me a lot, but that piece was, and plus nobody can replace your earthly father. And we see this, how many issues come with not having a dad in the home, like increased rates of incarceration, drug use, mental health issues, et cetera, things like that. So
yeah, Dante's Inferno is just an allegory of feminism. What is red pill? Living the red pill life. Let's skip to this part.
This came from. This is where I have a lot of content on social media talking about, hey, like think about it before you do it. And I'm not the arbiter of truth or masculinity. This is my opinion. I just think it's very, very hard to not glorify yourself in getting a tattoo on you. Like you can have Catholic or Christian imagery, but why do you have to permanently etch that into your skin? I don't get it. I can't find a way around it.
I actually think it makes people uglier.
I also agree.
And one thing
Bro, I love this man. He's like, I actually think tattoos make someone uglier. And look at the guy that he's sitting across from.
Etch that into your skin. I don't get it. I can't find a way around it.
I actually think it makes people uglier.
I also agree.
Dude, I love fucking Catholic conservatives because they're just like, nah, I think if you're gay, you really fucking suck. And you're talking to a gay person, they just have no shame at all. It's amazing.
The thing I've been fascinated lately is how people seem to be trying to make themselves uglier. And I see a lot of women, and I think it's like you were beautiful and you've tried to make yourself ugly and you've almost succeeded. With forgive me, ladies who are watching with the tats. I mean, look, I've got a tat, but there's something very gross about it. I'm really glad that my wife never got one.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My wife has them too. So we look kind of like this, like.
Dude, the Catholic guilt shaming is so good. It's just like, yeah, I think like people with tattoos are uglier. The guy with tattoos is like, yeah, my wife is an ugly whore. She has tattoos, I have tattoos, and we're both ugly as hell, man. Like, this is... It's so good. It's the purest distilled conservatism you can find on the internet.
A couple, when we go to church, it's like kind of everybody looks at us. It's like, hey, this was like a different life. I think that's what happens. I think
if you and your wife were in prison or you were a sailor, it would be cool.
Right. Neither one of us have ever been.
But now it's just like we're all bored. And we're all drawing on ourselves.
But I also think it's like when you're outside of God's protection in that way, when you're just kind of living for yourself, the demonic realm makes you do stupid things that make you uglify God's creation. I truly think that.
I think that's right. Yeah, we look less and less human with the purple hair and the piercings. And it's like, how far away can I get from being human?
Yeah.
That's
Bro, the purple hair, the piercings, how far away can I get from being human? Dude, wasn't like Adam and Eve naked and that was supposed to be their whole thing? Like, why are you wearing clothes? Kind of getting away from being human there. I mean, he also wears glasses. God, shouldn't you be human and just read words when they're blurry?
That's wild. So were you afraid?
Is this hair gel that he has in?
The red pill kind of teaches you to be afraid of intimacy.
It totally does.
Not need it. That's probably a sign of weakness, maybe, to need it.
Yes.
So when you find it within yourself as you were dating your wife, I can see that being maybe a scary experience.
Yep.
Because if you're intimate with someone, they can reject you. If you don't share your inner life with them, there's nothing to reject. There's just the externals.
Yeah, and I think a friend of mine, Pat Coffin, says it's not the red pill, it's the black pill because it makes you a doomer. It's so true. Because this is one of the red pill quote that a lot of these guys live by. She's not yours, it's just your turn.
Oh.
It's ugly. It's ugly. So you're operating in this way that's not authentic. You can't actually even be real with a woman, much less have any kind of longevity in a relationship because it's like, well, dude, she's just eventually going to leave you or she's going to end up post-wall. And so to these guys, post-wall means like post-peak sexual marketplace value rating, if you will. So past like 25. It's like, just why would you want a woman past 25? Why would you want to get married? You're going to get screwed over. It's just a matter of time until she takes you to the cleaners, bro.
Right. So is there an off-ramp for the red pill? Because I could, earlier you were saying, well, the way they justify sleeping with multiple people is, you want to try to understand women. Maybe you want to be better at sex. These are the lies that you hear. Is there some kind of off-ramp where people in the red pill...
I love this guy, like, talking about these unhinged red pill theories. And the conservative guy, the Catholic guy that he's talking about is like, yes, I can see that. I can see it. But let's try to let's talk more about how the women does belong to you. Why the femoid should be part of your domain as the husband of her. Like, we shouldn't be talking about the marketplace because these women aren't available to sell. They're owned property. My wife needs to serve me. And I'm really glad she doesn't have tattoos because she would uglify herself.
Community say, but eventually, settle down. And that's okay. Or no.
Yeah, it's really weird because it just depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Rollo Tomasi's married.
Yeah, it's not like they have a catechism that you can check.
Yeah, no, they're not. It's it's very fragmented and fractured. Like Andrew Tate, despite having children with different women, says that, it's a good thing to be married and to have kids. It's okay. It's kind of confusing. So that's why,
But, I mean, how did you view your future? I mean, maybe you said you were suicidal, so maybe you didn't have much thought about your future. But did you think, even in the height of this red pill experience, that one day I'd like to settle down? Yeah,
there was that. But I thought to myself, I said, if I have to put on this game, and it's exhausting, you're like white knuckling through these relationships, and you end up attracting a type of person, and you end up sort of perpetuating a kind of trauma in yourself and these other women. So it's like a confirmation bias. It's like you're all women are such low quality, and what happens? You end up kind of attracting low quality women. You're a low quality guy, so like you don't even deserve a high quality woman to begin with. And so in so many of these instances, dating some of these women, it's like I had to white knuckle this fake persona. And eventually, you know what happens? It all comes crumbling down because they see through it. It's not real. And it ends up being borderline abusive and tyrannical.
I love how this guy's not actually... is that the pedo Australian priest? I don't even know who you're talking about. But anyway, like I love how this guy is not rejecting the ideas behind the red pill movement and the sexual marketplace of people. He's not rejecting those ideas. He's just saying that those ideas lead you down like an unstable pathway. If you follow those ideas, then like the conclusions that you'll reach is bad. You will attract like low value women because that makes you a low value person. And he's like, the ideas are correct. It's just that we need to follow those ideas in a different way. Yeah, he's white knuckling through the relationship because he's about to beat his wife.
Stuff that I've done. I'm not talking about anything physical. Some of the stuff that I've done, like psychologically, like manipulatively, just so I can have the upper hand, it just makes me shudder. It's the things that I've repented for. So I said to myself, how can I be married? If I have to use these tactics for a lifetime, I'd rather just kill myself. I'm not going to do this. So, but of course, like that's kind of, maybe not all relationships outside of being Catholic are like that. But if your posture isn't oriented toward eternity with this person that is you guys are one flesh, how else can you make this union last the test of time? Doesn't make sense. Outside of the Christological worldview, if you will, there's nothing much there, I don't think.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. If you have a nihilistic view of the universe, if you have a godless view of the universe, then the red pill thing makes a little bit of sense to me. Totally. This is the only life I've got.
Yep.
I need to get.
All right, let's play the most replayed part of it.
Most guys just want to serve a family. And so my biggest thing is and this was at the beginning of my social media page, because social media changed my life. The fact that I'm even sitting here talking to you and have a business and a podcast, all this stuff on social media is crazy to me. I wake up every day, I'm like, this is insane. I just want to be a compass that points people to Christ in this church. That's it. However he wants to use me is not for my own glory, because I've tried to glorify myself for the majority of my life and it's gotten me nowhere, but broken. So
I really like what you put up on Instagram. I find it really inspirational. And I want to go through some of these and have you break them down. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Kind of open them up for us?
Yep.
All right, so you've got this one here. You say the number one rule about anti-masculinity. And so we'll go through these rules. You've got several of them.
Oh, this one.
Let your pee rule you. What does that mean and why shouldn't you do that?
So like it's like if you want to become the antithesis to true virtue and masculinity is just listen to your pee-pee. When it gives you a little tickle, touch it. Go on Tinder and swipe right.
What the fuck is he talking about? So the antithesis of masculinity is like masturbating, or going on. The antithesis of masculinity is trying to find a date. Is that what he's saying?
Go find yourself in a casual sexual encounter. Go do that. That's the antithesis. I'm trying to kind of this one.
Let your pee-pee rule you. What does that mean and why shouldn't you do that?
So
let your pee-pee rule you, bro. Is this guy does he have the emotional intelligence of a 5-year-old? This is so fucked up in so many ways.
Like if you want to become the antithesis to true virtue and masculinity is just listen to your pee-pee. When it gives you a little tickle, touch it. Go on Tinder and swipe right.
This man should not be allowed to have kids or be near other people's kids.
Find yourself in a casual sexual encounter. Go do that. That's the antithesis. I'm trying to kind of
You
know what I'm saying? Flip it on its head a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the logical conclusion.
Right, because your point is anti-masculinity. So if you want to be emasculated, these are your steps.
Because it's really interesting because this whole movement is about sort of like how disgusting female nature is, but it's all centered around getting more females. It's really, really strange. Like you love this thing that you hate, but you're at the mercy of like your little head. Like that's what it is. It's so effeminate. It's kind of like the guy, and I've been that guy too. I've lifted a ton of weight in my life. And it's what starts as like this antidote to effeminacy. It's like a horseshoe. You come to the other side and it just makes you more effeminate. weighing everything and like your abs have to be chiseled and you're upset that you're not lifting a certain amount of weight. Bro, I struggled with that for years. It makes you effeminate. Pope Pius XII talked about this too. I think he was addressing, back in the 50s, I think it was. And he was addressing like a soccer organization. He said, strength is God's gift to women, children, and society, but it has to be well ordered. If it's not well ordered, that you and your strength equally will be banished to hell.
Wow. Will
Nolan did a great article on this and it was so base. It's like, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, gym bros are pretty gay, so. Oh my God.
Keep it in its proper place. So all of these things, like it starts as I want to be more masculine, and what ends up happening when you're not protective, if you're not orienting yourself toward eternity, it makes you more feminine.
All right. So just orienting yourself towards eternity is masculinity. So I mean, it just shows how little these guys care about women. He's talking about how like if you are focused on superficial things, that's feminine. If you are focused on like a quick rush of release and excitement, that's feminine. Again, it's the exact same thing with that guy who did the Gladiator video we talked about. Masculinity for these guys is just anything that they like. It's anything that's good. Smoking a cigar, that's masculine. Okay, well, you're putting like a big brown meaty thing between your lips and sucking on it. Isn't that kind of feminine there, buddy? Wearing glasses, reading, isn't that a little bit feminine? Come on, dude. Like, it's so stupid. They just make up these words and these terms and they just run with it. No, they're not getting. Yeah, honestly, I think they do want to get kissed. There's a little bit of tension.
Rule number 2: build the body to the point of effeminate obsession. So you just pointed that out, but more to that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so that's right. So it's like, okay, well, you are both marble and sculptor. Okay, so build this body, but to the point where you can't go out and enjoy anything with your friends or your family or the girl that you're trying to court because you're so bloody obsessed with how etched your abs are. Like, is that masculine to you? You're shaving your body down. I did this.
Yeah.
Just because you look a little leaner when you shave your body down, bro.
Oh, shave your body.
Shave it. You're like just a hairless chicken.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But you look a little leaner.
Okay.
So why wouldn't you do that, right? Yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Okay. Good. All right. We come.
Yeah, I shave because it, or I guess I stopped shaving because I'm masculine now. So shaving is feminine. Making sure you care about your looks, that's feminine. Being obsessive, that's feminine. I mean, again, I don't really have any other analysis to say other than he's just defining masculinity as anything that he thinks is good. It's really
in different worlds, my friend.
Yes. No, and wear the extra medium shirts.
What does that mean?
Medium. So like they got to be hugging the pipes, bro.
Alrighty. Number 3: opt out of marriage entirely. Become the perpetual Peter Pan playboy.
Yeah, it ties into it, right? So wear really tight shirts and pants. Listen to your pee-pee, and never get married, and just always listen to your pee-pee until you die.
Jesus.
What I love.
Why Jesus you on Christ, the show this is cringing me out so hard. Yeah, I do love this guy. He's like, okay, well, if you do the things I like, then you're masculine. Okay, so then by that logic, like, women could be masculine, right? So you are kind of offering like an on-road for trans people to do that. Yeah, he really cares a lot about hugging the pipes. No, I know the pee-pee thing needs to stop. Why is he so obsessed about that? And I said it before, but this guy hasn't actually rejected the values of red pilling. He just ended up in a spot where he didn't like. And so he's kind of like, he still clings on to these values, but he's like, I am married now, so I need to work backwards from my conclusion and somehow square this circle where I do still appreciate the values of this, but I don't like the idea that if we follow the values of red pilling, it will bring you to a place where you're constantly trying to look your best and like get as many women as possible. Instead, I'm going to do this. But he's still kind of offering up the values of like the red pill movement in a good light. Oh, you gotta hug the pipes, bro. You gotta hug the pipes. Like, that's still a big part of his personality.
I think
he told us to wear tight shirts. You gotta hug those pipes on your arms. And I don't know if that's the only pipe that he wants to hug.
You clearly have a gift at addressing the kind of red pill, not just the red pill community, but those who have legitimate grievances and are looking for an answer and are beginning to be influenced by the red pill community. Like, you are going to be much better at addressing this than I would. Could you help me understand why pornography makes men, to use effeminate, unmasculine? What's the problem with pornography, would you say?
Well, I think there's something very not straight about looking at another man's phallus, first of all. Like, that's probably part of the equation.
Okay, he changed from pee-pee to phallus. There's something not straight about looking at another man's phallus, so that's why I only watch lesbian porn. That's what he's going to say, right?
We should probably address that. Like, that's a little strange. Okay. I think it's also strange that, like, you're touching yourself, too. You know,
I shared this joke on Shapiro's show. I forget the name of the comedian. Have you heard it? He says he says masturbation is double gay because not only are you giving a man a hand job, but you're receiving a hand job from a man.
Yeah, dude, it's true. Like, come on.
Jesus Christ, dude. How? What is happening? What is happening on the right? What is happening with conservatives? If you touch your own dick, you're gay. You're giving a man a hand job, right? I mean, if you're having sex with someone, like, don't do anal because that's pretty gay, right? If you are emotionally vulnerable with your girlfriend, that's a little bit gay because you're crying, and that's pretty fucking gay. If you say I love you, actually, like, having sex with a woman, that's the gayest thing you could do because you're making a man come. That's pretty gay. Like, why would you be doing that? Yeah, this is an insane conversation.
Oh man, and this is the thing. Also, tying back to the red pill, what it ends up being is the not straight cruiser lifestyle for straight men. If you catch what I mean.
Say that again.
It's the gay cruiser lifestyle for straight men.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think.
Oh, there's guys that want to pick up women. That's exactly like gay guys that want to pick up men. Oh my God. You're gay if you want to have sex with a lot of women because gay men some gay men want to have sex with a lot of men. Okay, dude. Holy shit. This guy really needs to reconcile with his sexuality because he's letting the intrusive thoughts win.
I get it.
That's it. That's what it is.
Number 4, pad your bank account in pursuit of earthly security.
Yeah, so security comes from God and his providence, not in because you can accumulate all kinds of wealth. I've been very broke and then not broke, and no matter what, I've always felt broke because I put my security in the digits in my bank account, and the higher level you go, your threshold for zero just goes higher. That's it. So it's like, okay, well, don't look to God for your security. Those digits in your Bugatti, whatever color that is, that's your security.
Selfish ambition is your God. That's the 5th rule.
Well, it's just about buying more stuff, right? Buy more stuff. You love the game, but you love the game because you buy more stuff because there's a big gaping hole within your heart that you want to fill with stuff that is a God-shaped hole and not a thing-shaped hole.
I love this one. Number 6, become spiritual, not religious.
I love how he's not able to say that it's like, oh yeah, material things shouldn't make you happy. Like, you need to have inner peace. He's saying that you shouldn't buy stuff because it's God. But obviously these guys do care about having a good lifestyle and being able to show off that lifestyle and also worship God. But I mean, the guy's saying happiness doesn't come from within. It doesn't come from material things. And it's like, he's so close. And then he turns at the last minute and he's like, God gives us happiness. It's like, okay, well, happiness can be helped by material conditions for sure. But also, like, we should try to have like meaningful connections in our lives. He's like, nah, forget about all that stuff. Just all you need is God.
It's the cry of the prideful, unrepentant heart, right? So St. Augustine in Confessions, there's this beautiful quote that's the world is drunk off of its own invisible wine of perverted, earthbound will. Just by St. Augustine. Come on, man.
Fantastic.
So good.
We need men to speak like that again.
Right? Right? And I actually just read it, so you can't say that it wasn't Augustine. That was definitely Augustine. That was definitely Augustine.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah, that's good.
So
it is interesting. I remember I went through that phase right around my agnostic phase, right? Where I thought, well, I want the benefits of what someone might call religion. You know, I want to be, what's up? Turn around a bit. Face me. Is that what you're telling me? Why don't you just say it? Because I don't know what you're saying to me.
Yes.
Okay.
So I move around a lot. Yeah, I move around a lot.
Yeah, I wanted that. I wanted the feeling that, you know, there was meaning in the universe, you know, that I was destined for things. That's why I think a lot of people are attracted to kind of Eastern stuff like Buddhism and stuff.
Sure.
Because when you start reading those books, they talk a lot about what you can get from spirituality, but no one tells you what you can do with your pee-pee or not do.
Well, that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the big difference
I'm
there.
pretty sure that's what people mean when they say spiritual.
That's exactly
it's
what they
usually
mean.
all about sex.
It's usually all about sex or drug use or alcohol use. It's
people don't get pissed off that the church is against insider trading or racism.
No.
They're all right.
How dare you tell me what to do with my appendage?
Yeah.
Even in the way that I have sex with my wife. How dare you? That's exactly what it is.
Number 7, become entirely enslaved to your carnal desires.
Yeah, so PP, digits on the bank account, you know, buying the Rolexes, just being enslaved to...
What is this stuff?
Desires.
Yeah, so PP...
or racism.
No.
They're all right.
How dare you tell me what to do with my appendage?
Yeah.
Even in the way that I have sex with my wife. How dare you? That's exactly what it is.
Number 7, become entirely enslaved to your carnal desires.
Yeah, so PP, digits on the bank account, you know, buying the Rolexes, just being enslaved to just the capitalism and
what is this list? It's the same thing over and over again. You shouldn't try to like have sex. You shouldn't be having premarital sex. That's what this guy's list is. And then just in reference to that last point, why are they laughing how they're like, oh, well, the church stands up for good things too. Why is no one criticizing the church for standing against racism? And then the guy's like, yeah, people only care about the church telling them who they can and can't have sex with. Bro, this guy, man, these conservative people, they get off on talking about sex, sexuality, their pee, control over women, women's sexuality. They get off on that shit because they get to talk about it like a creepy paternal figure in someone's life. They'll be like, yes, well, so many women are feeling slutty and ashamed that they can't find the right men. And it's just giving them this like gross feeling of how they're like involved in people's sexuality. And even with young men too, they'll be like, you shouldn't be watching porn, you shouldn't be touching yourself because touching your pee-pee is gay. And it's just like, you are really sick fucks because you're bringing this up and trying to control young people's sexualities, and you're getting off on talking about it in this like elitist, above it all, conservative way, while also being extremely like childish and just straight up inappropriate with it too. Oh, you shouldn't touch you shouldn't touch your pee-pee. Don't wear tight jeans that show off your pee-pee. You got to wear, but you shouldn't wear tight shirts that show off your guns.
Heroes and hundreds. And
I wonder if the Lord will allow you to, I mean, maybe we don't need to be writing books anymore, but this would be a great book. Like eight ways, like 8 rules.
Yeah, oh yeah, that could
become
very well
emasculated.
Yeah.
So I like this final one: never repent, never surrender, never bend the knee. Instead, accept your place in hell.
Well, that's that when you think this out to its logical endpoint, that's what happens, right? It's, you know, what did St. Paul talk about in the Epistle to the Romans? Is like they were given over to their sin in such a way they became of reprobate mind. I think his Father Ripperger says that sin makes you stupid and it just begets more sin. I was there. It's like, okay, well, this didn't make me feel really good, but I'm just gonna do more of it because in the moment I felt really good. Yeah. And so maybe that'll fix all my problems. And it darkens your intellect completely. That's why you even see a lot of these really intelligent people like Nietzsche, super smart, way smarter than me. But then you read some of his stuff, you're like, actually, this is kind of dumb. There's no such thing as objective truth.
And didn't he die of syphilis, Josiah? Okay.
Right.
And he had an STD. They're slut-shaming Nietzsche.
Can people hear you speaking, Josiah? Can they hear? All right.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
I actually remember there was an episode of The Big Bang Theory, a show that I'm not recommending, where one of the fellas was trying to justify sleeping around on his girlfriend, and he quoted Nietzsche, and he said, well, Nietzsche said this, and it made him feel good, and he went, well, but he did die of syphilis.
Syphilis, yeah. No, it's funny how that happens. It's, you can be so smart, but if you're not submitted to God, you're not following God's law, you are a kind of stupid that only God can save you from.
Man, have you checked out Exodus 90 lately?
Because no fucking atheists or no fucking Christian people ever died of syphilis.
That's exactly right. So, I mean, and there's a lot of guys that are asking me this right now because there's this huge return to the Catholic Church that's happening right now. It's so crazy. I'll maybe plug this at the end, but I have this group that runs the Catholic Masculinity Project.
How can people find it?
So it's on School. So you can find it on all my social media platforms. It's my link in my bio. So there's a premium version, there's a free version. The free version has grown to over 600 members in 2.5 weeks.
600 fellas?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
600 plus guys. It's a place where men...
There's a huge movement towards the Catholic Church right now. I have this program, and it has over 600 people on the free version. Dude, are you fucking serious? This is a huge return to Catholicism for your Catholic Masculinity course.
Growing faith, fellowship, and fortitude. And the whole reason for this...
What's the URL? Do you know it?
Okay. We got to go to this.
Yeah,
so
we
remember put this in
is going to be a good section.
They're not like all there in the head that we respond to this. Him and I are the same. He's deadlifted over 700 pounds. I've deadlifted over 800 pounds.
Not that anyone's competing.
No. Hey, that's the one thing I have on that guy.
Okay.
He's got everything else on me. And that was funny because I wasn't even trying to be that guy, but there you go. Wasn't trying to be self-aggrandizing. No. That way. But that's the one thing that we talk about is like, we're not the norm in the sense that like I respond really well to that.
Yeah.
He says like, don't be like that with other people, even him. And I know that too.
They're not like us.
They're not like us. And not a kind of superior
People
way.
don't like being shamed.
We're kind of screwed up. The Protestants, yeah, right. So the Protestants actually do that really well. There's more welcoming. It's more loving. And that's exactly what we wanted to do with this group too, because there are men's groups that are kind of like, it's kind of like the red pill will kind of shame a guy into submission. There's a place for heat.
Yeah.
When a guy just needs to be called out.
For sure.
That's love though, right? It's like that's actually like, willing the good of the other, right? You're like grabbing him by the scruff of the shirt.
But it's done in a certain way, isn't it? Like
right.
The two fellas who told you to save sex or to not engage in sex while your wife and you didn't have a regularized marriage. They didn't do it publicly on YouTube. Nope. They didn't do it to your friends. They didn't speak behind your back. They spoke to you with tough love. It was love though.
It absolutely was love. It wasn't just like getting off on bashing a guy and kicking him while he's down. That's completely different. And then there's a place obviously for light when a guy's like really feeling,
defeated.
Deflated. You need to like shoulder the burden with that guy and walk the path forward.
Dude, Catholic people do actually get off on telling like gay people that they're sinning, or they do get off on chastising people for sinning. So I love this guy saying that, we do need to have a place where we can call people out on this stuff. Hey, you don't need to tell Catholic people that. this guy sat there and told like a lesbian to her face, yeah, well, I do think that your sin is on a different level of harm than premarital sex, because you are you're like completely twisting the idea of sex, whereas premarital people, they're still doing sex the right way. They're just doing it at the wrong time. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, I believe that. I believe it. And then he's like, well, yes, we should be able to call people out on their issues. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, buddy.
That's exactly why we created a space like that. It's like mostly love, but then you get the times where these guys need some heat, you know, and heat is good. My work is being able to shed more light instead of heat, because I'm like a blue collar guy at heart, where I like those rough conversations, but not everybody's gonna respond to that. And my wife certainly didn't. Circling back to this,
you suck.
Yeah, you suck. How do you not understand this? Let me tell you about the communion of saints and church fathers, right?
Yeah, she was just crying. It was really embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. It was for me, because I was failing as a leader so horribly. And I don't even pretend to say that I even do it perfectly now. I just do it. I would say I do it better now for sure. It was a combination of all those things, right? So it was the fruit that she saw in me, like how I was changing me, my devotion, my love for Christ was coming alive. And it was also like, okay, little things. I'm going to take her to a parish that she really feels welcomed at. Like I want to immediately go to the traditional Latin Mass. I said, I'm going to save this. She'll come with me because she's beautiful, and she'll go where I go. She said that to me. It's like, praise God for such a woman. I'll go where you go. Okay, great. But I want her to come to this with joy and with love. So this is a great test of my leadership, right? So let's go to this maybe slightly boomer parish, but it's still going to save my soul. Novus Ordo or TLM. Maybe one's more reverent. That's okay. We can argue about that. They're both still going to save your soul. Jesus is there. He's present in the Eucharist. I'm going to take her there. She feels welcome in the community, and I'm just going to let the Holy Spirit do the rest. When she has questions, I'll address them to the best of my ability. Now, sometimes there are times where I kind of lose my patience, or I get impatient, or I've been impatient. But a combination of that, and also sending her content that I really think speaks to her. This is where Keith Nestor and Dr. Scott Hahn and a lot of the stuff that you've done have really helped, because she sees like this love, and in a way that, not that these guys are speaking like lay people, they're incredibly intelligent, but it's kind of relatable because it hits a woman in the heart. It's not like this staunch intellectualism, because it's off-putting, it's intimidating. And then seeing our daughters get baptized, and then seeing the change in our marriage when I decided to be celibate. It's like, I love you so much that I want to honor God.
How did she feel about that? I mean, when presumably you came to her and said, we need to abstain.
Bro, this guy has some really deep-seated issues. He's like, yeah, well, I'm going to like talk at a parish, but I'm not going to answer any of your questions. I'm just going to let the Holy Spirit do the work. And then the wife is asking him some more questions, and he's like, I'm going to send you content from guys like Matt Fradd and some other online preachers. I'm just going to have you... Yeah, I do lose my patience with her sometimes, but she understands. And I send her these like really watered down things, not because she's stupid, but because she doesn't appreciate intellectualism. It's like, this guy's so funny. Oh,
it was two things.
And our relationship got so much stronger when we stopped having sex. When I decided to become celibate.
She's like, I love this. This is amazing. But like, don't we want to have more children? I said, but don't you trust God? She's like, yeah, you're right. Pretty short conversation. She's like, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, I know. This is what I needed to tell you. It's like, we're both in our 30s. And she's like, I'm not getting any younger. I'm like, I know. But God gave Sarah a baby super old. Hopefully he won't be 99 or 100 years old, hopefully. But if we trust God's providence, either we stay with these two beautiful angels, that's all we have, but our hearts are full, our homes are full, great. Or we can continue to multiply. But I'd rather do it knowing we honored him first. And downstream of that, I'm honoring and I'm loving you, my bride. I so much want to take your clothes off and ravage you right now, but I'm choosing not to. And there's something so sanctifying about that.
Jason Everett.
Dude, these people are so repressed sexually. They're so fucked up. I'm not going to have sex with my wife because I trust that God's making the right decision to make me celibate. I don't understand how he's leaving this decision up to God. Isn't the Catholic idea of sex in marriage, you just have sex regularly, and then when you have a kid, it's because God like tells you to have a kid, or God deems you worthy to have a kid? Yeah, he's not listening to his pee-pee. That's the issue, I guess. God, this guy is so creepy.
Makes the connection to alcoholism. He says the man who can't say no to his next drink isn't free, he's a slave.
That's right.
The same thing's true with sex.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's, a lot of people don't, I think, realize or maybe understand how to show and express love outside of intimacy. And sometimes that can be a challenge. Yes. Sometimes maybe people, that's the bandage, right? Like they have really good sex, but outside of that, there's really not much else going on.
How did you kind of foster intimacy outside of the bedroom during those 7 weeks?
But there was just more, I'm not a very like physically affectionate person, even like verbally, like I'm very verbose.
I'm not a physically affectionate person. I'm also not verbally affectionate. I actually like hate my wife. We don't even have sex, so like there's not that kind of affection either. Dude, okay, where's he going?
But sometimes I forget that my wife's a woman that like needs to be doted on and told these nice, sweet nothings.
My wife is not that way at all.
You know,
it sucks because I'm great at affirmations. I'm really good at it.
It's so funny. It's so, what is that, choleric? I guess
yeah,
more
my
choleric.
wife's very choleric. Oh, you are too, yeah. But I remember I was like, my wife might come in the room and like without trying to manipulate her, without trying to come off as whatever, I'm like, oh my gosh, you look beautiful. She's like, yeah. Could you please fix the thing?
Yeah. It's so
I feel
practical.
so loved.
Yeah,
If you just fix that shoe rack.
But that's part of like a sanctifying process for you because you just want to be over the top and you're like, well, I got to meet her where she's at. This is maybe not the way that she best receives love. Like, how does your wife receive love? My wife just happens to be that person that likes those sweet nothings and the physical affection, and I'm not particularly good at. And I think God does that on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, because it's easy for me to just forget about that, or to even not even necessarily go on dates, but just to kind of just take the time to just sit down without our phones and just talk, pray together, pray before meals. You know, random spurts of affection, writing her little sweet nothing notes that she absolutely loves, getting her flowers randomly. And
it's like all this stupid shit that I have to do to maintain this relationship. I fucking hate doing all of this. But God tests me in mysterious ways. I think God is sending these tests my way. So, you know, I fucking stop at the store on the way home and pick up a rose every now and then just to maintain this relationship so she doesn't leave me.
That I wouldn't really typically think about because I'm like, she's my wife and she loves me and I love her and everything's fine, right? It's like, no, but like, when's the last time I told her, like, you're beautiful? It goes a long way. It goes a long way. And I've seen that transform her too. It just lights her right up, those little sweet nothings. Hard for me to say, not because I don't think that they're true.
It just doesn't come naturally.
It just doesn't come naturally. It doesn't. But I gotta work on that. That's part of the marriage.
It's like when I look at her, it does not spring forth from my lips that you look good. It feels so unnatural to say that you're hot. Bro, this guy hates his wife. I don't know. I feel like this guy would be happier with a man in his life. Let's just say it that way.
Slow martyrdom. Right? It's like the slow, virtuous death in a beautiful way, right? Because like it's so easy for us to romanticize like Catholics. Like you see all the Crusader memes, right?
What?
Like,
What the fuck is he talking? Complimenting his wife is a slow, virtuous death?
Sweet nothings. Hard for me to say, not because I don't think that they're true.
It just doesn't come naturally.
It just doesn't come naturally. It doesn't. But I gotta work on that. That's part of the marriage is slow martyrdom, right? It's like the slow, virtuous death in a beautiful way.
Bro, he says... He says marriage is a slow, virtuous death in a beautiful way. Holy shit. I thought the host of the podcast hated his wife. This guy is on another level.
Right? Because like it's so easy for us to romanticize like Catholics. Like you see all the Crusader memes, right? Like I just want to call from the Pope, bro. Come on, let's overtake Jerusalem. Let's take back Constantinople. Let's do it. It's easy to romanticize. Like, hey, the Pope calls me to do that. I'm going.
Yeah, but if God says, can you give up sex for 7 weeks?
Right. Or can you love your wife until you guys pass away? Can you do that? Why can't we romanticize that? Because I would say dying in battle as a crusader is easier than doing that.
Oh my God. Okay, he literally just said, dying in battle as a crusader is easier than loving my wife for the rest of my life. Holy shit. Holy shit. He's like, being married to this woman is a slow, virtuous death to me. It is my martyrdom. This is my cross that I have to bear. Dude, you fucking hate your wife. You hate your life. Go hang out with a dude, be ripped at the gym, and just suck and fuck his pee-pee until you're happy. I think that would be much easier for you to do. Yeah, he's a stoic king. He's just suffering in silence. Oh my God, this bitch again. All right, fine. You look beautiful, honey. Oh, look at her. She's so dumb. Her face lights up whenever I say that. I'll buy you flowers tonight, honey. Can you? Yeah, no. I'm a little tired. I don't want to have sex right now. Don't you trust God? Why don't you trust God? Stop asking me for details about my church, honey. It's man time. I'm going to church to be with men now, okay? Just let the Holy Spirit take care of you. Oh, fucking finally, she's gone. This guy hates his wife.
And that's flip. I don't know where God. It's such a simple realization, right? It's kind of a meathead realization. It's like a meathead. It's like my meathead theology. It's like that's way harder.
Do you know who Jason Everett is?
Of course, I've listened to his podcast.
He's so terrific.
He's great.
He has this line. He says this fella comes up to him and he's sleeping with his girlfriend. He tells Jason, "I'd take a bullet for her." He's like, "Well, unless you're like girlfriends in organized crime, like, that's very unlikely."
Yeah.
But could you like safe sex or marriage? No, I couldn't do that.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you live and love her properly? You know, not to sound cheesy and like, you know, overly. I am Italian, so I mean, it's just what we do. Indirectly, is just sound like cheeseballs, but I don't mean that in a cheeseball way. I mean that like a sincere way. Can you love her?
Yeah. Well, it's the harder option. I mean, how easy is it to get excited to marry a beautiful woman, marry her, get fed up with your own stuff and her stuff, and to abandon her for somebody else, and then repeat that process?
Bro, what the fuck? This is literally what I was saying, where he'll continuously say that he fantasizes about abandoning his family. And this guy's now, like, I was not expecting this had happened in this episode. This is now like the fourth time I've heard him say it. He's like, yeah, how easy would it be to abandon my wife and children? I could just imagine myself in a life without them. And you wonder why people do have sex before marriage. You wonder why people do want to date before marriage, so that they're not stuck in these marriages where they got into early so that they could have sex in like a miserable place in their lives. Both of these men clearly do not want to be in their marriage. They're fantasizing about how easy it is to leave their families. I was not expecting him to be like, oh yeah, so many men can fantasize about leaving their family and their wife and kids.
It's a harder option.
It's just what we do. Indirectly, it just sound like cheeseballs, but I don't mean that in a cheeseball way. I mean that like a sincere way. Can you love her?
Yeah, well, it's the harder option. I mean, how easy is it to get excited to marry a beautiful woman, marry her, get fed up with your own stuff and her stuff, and to abandon her for somebody else, and then repeat that process? That's very easy to do.
It's very easy to do.
That's what I'm saying. So it actually takes a lot of strength to work through your own stuff and to love her in spite of her own flaws and your own, and to wake up every day and to try to love her, try to die for her. It's bloody difficult.
Just two men complaining about how hard it is to maintain relationships with their wives. Oh my God. This is why I love this podcast. It's just, man. Wait, what time is it? All right, let's do this next segment. Issues with feminism. Are there any other why men like Islam? Wow. So this podcast is literally hitting up like all of the greatest hits of this guy Matt Fradd's podcast, where he's talking about how Islam is better than atheism because at least it radicalizes men. We should leave our families because our lives fucking suck. And then they're using like masculinity as a catch-all for everything they like, and femininity for a catch-all for everything that they don't like.
I've been married 18 years.
Praise God.
It's wonderful.
I can imagine.
And I can honestly say,
all right, I'm going to do this next. I'm going to do this next segment, issues with feminism, because I think that's going to be funny, and then I'll probably end it off there.
I think it's way better than it used to be. I have this analogy I've been using lately. I've been saying how marriage is sort of like Birkenstocks, in that it molds to our dysfunction. You talk to a chiropractor and they say Birks aren't necessarily good for you. If you're walking funny, then have you heard me use this analogy? I think it's a good one.
I probably have. What's coming to mind is that I wouldn't use that equivalent because Birkenstocks are so ugly.
I said to somebody,
come on.
I said marriage is like Birkenstocks, like only 40-year-old lesbians wear them. I'm like, shut up, man. I love them.
My wife loves them. It's an argument we get into all the time.
No, I love Birks. If that's wrong, I don't want to be right. But
she's laughing right now. When she watches this, she's going to be dying laughing. It's going to be so good.
But my point is, I kind of grew up only being...
Bro, X-Team, can you just like cut it out in the chat? Don't make me ban you, bro. Like, we're done talking about trans women. Either engage with what we're talking about or just stop posting comments. If you want to rewind in the stream and talk about and like react to and just listen to what I had to say on trans people, you're welcome to do that. But let's just try to stay on topic in here and not spam the chat with your like anti-trans issues.
I never had really good male friends until after my conversion. And so I feel like I wasn't very masculine in many ways when we got married. My wife grew up with certain dysfunctions as well. You get married and then you just sort of make it work. But just because something's working doesn't mean serious healing needs to take place and realignment, which often causes a lot of pain.
That totally does. That totally does. And I think a lot of men a lot of Catholic men have dealt with that because feminism...
I don't even know. How do I ban people? I have to figure that out. By the way, if anyone wants to be mods on my channel, simply because like I'm not there all the time for my video streams and stuff like that, but if anyone wants to be mods to like clean up comment sections, clean up live chats, send me an email and I'll because I do want mods so that we can keep this community like a welcoming place to everyone, and so that we don't have everything taken up by trolls and trolls derailing the chat. So yeah, send me an email and I'll promote like people that want to be mods to that status so we can keep this clean.
It's very kind of loud but quiet.
What does that mean?
Meaning like, so you don't realize how brainwashed you are by it?
Yeah.
Because it's just been kind of like this slow sort of propaganda. I don't even know the word. Yeah, you've been propagandized, right? And you've been indoctrinated.
Yeah.
For example, for me, and I'm saying this for me too, at the beginning of my marriage, it's like me and my wife were splitting things 50-50. But I wanted to be like a leader of a home. I'm going to split things 50-50. I remember her sitting me down and saying, you're paying for the mortgage and you're paying for the because you make way more money than me and this is not fair. Like, that's your job. I remember my brother-in-law calling me and said, like, you know, in our culture, the man pays for everything, right? Dude, and I was like, I'm going to be this patriarch. And this is what I'm saying. It's so covert.
Yeah.
This 50-50 egalitarian, which effectively, I think, ruins men, ruins women, ruins marriages.
I know you've thought about feminism a lot more than me. So here's something I've been thinking about lately, and I'd love you to kind of I don't know, clarify it or offer something. And this has been something of a kind of intellectual conversion for me. I spoke to a Sheila called Carrie Gress, who wrote a book called The End of, what's it called? The End of Woman, How Smashing the Patriarchy Has Destroyed Us. And I was thinking about this and I thought, okay, women are weaker. If they weren't, feminism wouldn't exist. It's almost like, but the atheist looks at the woman who is weaker and tries to make up for her deficiency by making her man-like. The Christian, I think, ought to see.
Oh my God, so fucking dumb. Women are weaker, so, and if they weren't, feminism wouldn't exist. The implication being, men already have better rights than women because women are weaker. I mean, that's just a very poor understanding of issues. All right, let's see. Where is this chat? Okay. X team should be gone now. I hope
the woman, by weaker, that doesn't mean a deficiency. This vulnerability is part of her beauty and genius.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's actually not something that needs to be rectified. It's something that needs to be understood and nurtured and loved and protected.
Yeah, I mean,
something like that.
Yeah, and this is the problem. Yeah, I would agree. I'm trying to like parse that out in my.
Yeah, I didn't say it very.
So I mean, what does feminism say? It's not saying that we need to flatten down all characteristics between men and women. It's not saying that like women are weaker and we need to try to make them just as strong as men. It's simply arguing for like equal rights between men and women. It's not an extremely complicated subject, and you can apply this same flawed logic that Matt Fradd is doing to any kind of marginalized group and say that the reason they're marginalized is because of these differences that make them special, but you know, they should not have voting rights or like as good of a quality of life as us white people because of these differences that I'm criticizing.
Clearly, but it's just been, I've been thinking about it a lot lately. We get lied to. It's sort of like how men get lied to about how porn is very masculine. That's kind of a lie I remember being told as a kid.
Yep.
And then a woman gets lied to, like that she's a slave if she serves her husband, but liberated if she serves her employer. We just get lied to.
You totally
and then to break out of that lie, it's like you become a traitor to the typical way of thinking, common way of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that.
My God, dude, people aren't saying you're liberated because you're serving an employer, or people are saying that you're liberated if you have financial agency so that you don't have to rely on a man. And then also people aren't saying you're a slave because you're married. They're saying you're a slave because you have no agency. You're entirely dependent on your husband. And that does cause a lot of issues, because when you are in loveless marriages like these two motherfuckers are, their wives don't have any agency, so their wives can't leave them. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's not that hard to understand.
This is the problem with the bracketing of Ephesians 5 in the Mass. It's like, the apostles talked about this. This was in the Bible. It's patriarchy is bimodal. There's the clerical patriarchy and the household patriarchy, right? We're different. That's beautiful. We're equal in dignity. There's a stronger sex, there's a weaker sex, and we have uniquely different roles. This is where mutual submission falls flat, because mutual submission implies that we're the same, that the two parties are alike. We're alike in the sense that we're both God's creation.
Okay, so what are they talking about here? Well, there's a passage in the Bible that says like the woman needs to, or the wife needs to submit to the man. But then there's like another like phrase or something in the Bible that says the man needs to submit to the woman. Or not in those words, but people will analyze the Bible and they'll say that, well, the Bible does explicitly say that women need to submit to their husbands. However, it also says in another section that men should like serve their wives and protect their wives. So therefore, the Bible's not saying that women are worse than men. They're just saying that men and women need to like serve each other. And obviously, like wives and husbands need to serve each other. But that's a lie. They'll say that, but what they actually believe is that women should submit to men. And we're now getting this like fucking idiot talking about how the lie of mutual service to each other is just that. It's a lie. Actually, women are the weaker sex, and thus they should serve the man. So let's get into what he's actually has to say here.
We're the same, that the two parties are alike. We're different. That's beautiful. We're equal in dignity. There's a stronger sex, there's a weaker sex, and we have uniquely different roles. This is where mutual submission falls flat, because mutual submission implies that we're the same, that the two parties are alike. We're alike in the sense that we're both God's creation, but we're not the same. And so anything with, I think this is Vodi Bakum said this, he's a Protestant pastor, anything with two heads is a monster. Mm-hmm. And I just read this in a book, The Case for Patriarchy by Tim Gordon, by the way. And I think it was we're going to be quoting Aquinas and actually seeing if this is Aquinas. This is the joke.
I'm not an expert.
And this is why I don't like people that only talk in quotes, because why can't you just say what you're talking about? They need to continuously jump from quote to quote and just try to string those together because they don't have a well-conceived enough worldview to defend that worldview. They haven't arrived at that worldview with through an introspective analysis of like their feelings and the conditions that they're living in. So they need to defend it through like this obfuscation of quotes. And it really reminds me of that guy Willie Mack that we reviewed yesterday, who just jumps from clip to clip of Hassan, where he's not actually analyzing the clips at all. The clips aren't actually saying anything, but he's just presenting them like he's just using the clips to present the idea that Hassan is bad. And it's the exact same thing with these Catholic guys. They just jump from quote to quote, and the quotes aren't really meaningful in any way, but they're just using these quotes, which are like kind of well packaged and well polished words, to bring about the idea that women do kind of suck and men are bad.
No, and he said he was talking about Sirach, the book Sirach, and he was saying that the philosopher says that the woman's dominion is the death of a family, like a tyrant of a commonwealth.
Okay.
I believe that's a quote from Sirach, and Thomas is quoting Sirach.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a quote of a quote. And
he's gonna look it up.
You look, please look it up.
He's not trying to fact check you. He's just trying to find the source for it.
That's fine. No, yeah, it's a woman's dominion is the death of a family, like a tyrant of a commonwealth, or as a tyrant of a commonwealth. I don't know what translation that is of Sirach, but it was quoting Sirach nevertheless.
Yep.
And so it's like, why are we treating each other like we're the same? I think this has been the greatest psyop that we failed.
Okay, so he says a quote. He doesn't analyze the quote. He doesn't explain what it means. The quote doesn't make any sense. The woman's dominion is the death of the family, like a tyrant of a house. Now he's quoting a quote. It doesn't make any sense. A woman's dominion. I thought the woman's dominion was the home. I thought that's the argument that these guys were making. That the woman's dominion is the home. She takes care of the home. She takes care of the kids, cleans the home, cooks there, while the man goes out in the field, works in the field, hunts, works at like a bank or something, brings home money, and provides financially. So I don't understand what he's saying. He doesn't understand what he's saying. He just has a quote, and it kind of, the topic that they were talking about reminded him of the quote. He just spewed it out. He's like, oh, here. This is relevant too, right? The guy's like, okay. And he's like, yeah. All right, so let's get back to what we were saying. Little nerd.
Because we can't even say that first wave feminism was good. The only innocuous piece of feminism that was this wasn't objectively an okay thing is the voting. But I heard even you wrestling with that recently, were you not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know anyone should be voting, but
right.
No, I don't know. I mean, you could be.
These guys also don't want people to vote. They just want property owners to vote.
And I could be persuaded that a family should vote.
He wrote these quotes on his pee-pee. he can only read the full quote when he's aroused.
And that the man being the head of the family should vote on behalf of the family.
So there you go. But for sure, and I think we agree on that.
I don't know. I haven't thought it through. That seems reasonable to me.
It does seem reasonable to me as well. And so that was the only maybe relatively innocuous part, and one we could argue about that point. But everything else is just a lie.
Oh yeah, women shouldn't have equal rights as men, and they shouldn't even be able to vote.
Head of the family should vote.
Right. This wasn't objectively an okay thing is the voting. But I heard even you wrestling with that recently, were you not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know anyone should be voting, but
right.
No, I don't know. I mean, I could be persuaded that a family should vote.
Right.
Not two people, and that the man being the head of the family should vote on behalf of the family.
So the man is the head of the family, so he should vote. Nobody should vote except a family, because obviously families have more impact on society. They have a stake in society, right? That's what the Republicans are saying. Men have a stake on society. People with kids have a stake on society. That's J.D. Vance's whole worldview. If you don't have kids, you shouldn't be able to vote. If you're like, even Vivek Ramaswamy is saying that if you're like below 25, you shouldn't be able to vote. So this guy's saying that not two people should vote, but the man should be able to vote because he's representing the family unit. And I mean, I don't think I need to explain why that's fucking stupid. Like, people living in a country should have a say in the direction that country goes. Yeah, no, this guy's insane, and he's completely secluded from any kind of... So this is the issue with Republicans. You get guys like Ben Shapiro, you get guys like Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, Steven Crowder, even like guys like Piers Morgan, who effectively does Republican propaganda. But the issue with these guys is they're getting their messages from people like this. So all of those guys that I listed, they're in the spotlight and they take the criticism from leftist people. They're kind of the bridge from Republicans to leftists. So they take these ideas from these insane religious conservative nut jobs and they polish them up. They come up with a more palatable way to explain these ideas. So you got guys like JD Vance, where he's like, well, maybe people without kids shouldn't vote. So he took the idea that this conservative religious fundamentalist said, which is only men should be able to vote for families. And JD Vance took that idea and changed it to only people with kids should be able to vote because they have a more important stake in society. Or I think he said like people with kids should be able to vote for their kids, essentially. So it's effectively the same thing, right? You're giving more voting power to people with children. And it's the same thing as this too, except it's not as extreme. It's a little bit closer to what we have now. And so you can say that it's like more palatable. It's how they shift the narrative. But the issue is like these conservative freaks is where all of the like mainstream Republicans are talking, like they're giving ideas that the mainstream Republicans are talking about, but the more progressive and liberal news media is covering the mainstream conservatives who have polished up these ideas instead of going directly at the source, which is this fucking freak who has like 623,000 subscribers and he has 110,000 views on this video, and he's interviewing Jordan Peterson, he's interviewing Ben Shapiro, he's interviewing all of these guys who are mainstream conservative, and like he represents the base of Donald Trump. He represents the base of the conservative party, and that's where like this is the wellspring of disgusting radical views that the mainstream conservatives are touting.
Oh, there you go. But for sure, and I think we agree on that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought it through. That seems reasonable to me.
It does seem reasonable to me as well. And so that was the only maybe relatively innocuous part, and one we could argue about that point. But everything else is just a lie. I mean, the Seneca Falls Convention's first wave feminism talking about cutting off the head of the family.
Yeah, no, it's wicked. It's wicked root and branch.
It's completely wicked, and this is why we cannot speak with the red pill without talking about feminism.
That's right.
You know, and this is why I don't want to bash the feminists that have been indoctrinated, because a lot of them like they come out of it in their 30s and 40s. That's heartbreaking to see.
Well, it's the same reason you have sympathy for red pill men.
That's exactly why.
Women ought to have sympathy for those who've been indoctrinated by feminism and haven't come out of it yet. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be corrected.
They should be corrected, and I think there's a place for the heavy-handed correction, and there's a place for the gentle correction.
But this is why we need women to do this. You said earlier that women listen to women.
Yes.
We need women to speak in a way that women will hear, because you can speak in a way that people just think you're a jerk and they won't listen to you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's called for. Sometimes people respond to that.
Sure.
Even women will respond to that well. But yeah, we do need more women, I think, to call out this stuff.
Yeah, and I think like the perfection of
calling Brett Cooper. Let's get Brett Cooper in here to call this shit out. It goes back to that Nixon or Reagan advisor that was like, we can't say racial slur, but we can talk about education. We can talk about crime. Yeah, exactly.
Femininity, like what a woman is. I think I'm just exploring the sentence out loud. I said this during the filming of a documentary somewhat recently, was that exists in a woman's agency in saying yes to God through her husband and just being obedient and submissive. But let me also say the flip side too. And maybe we shouldn't also.
Okay. We gotta run that back. That was insane.
Yeah, we do need more women, I think, to call out this stuff.
Yeah, and I think like the perfection of femininity, like what a woman is. I think I'm just exploring the sentence out loud. I said this during the filming of a documentary somewhat recently, was that exists in a woman's agency in saying yes to God through her husband and just being obedient.
So femininity in his mind is being obedient to the husband, saying yes to God through her husband. Yeah, like I didn't even mention that heavy-handed correction. Like, what the fuck is he talking about there? And that would probably be violence against women. It would be like banning these feminists on TikTok. Like, it would be kind of the two-pronged approach, right? They would have the Brett Cooper types, the Candace Owen types, who would talk about how women need to be pure, and they would slut shame the ones that aren't pure. And then they would also have like literal cops to break up feminist rallies, banning people from TikTok, actual violence against like LGBTQ people, like more just hate crimes, more shootings at gay clubs. That's kind of, I mean, he would never say that, but that's what he's talking about.
And
honestly, this man would be way happier with a dog than his wife.
Submissive. But let me also say the flip side too. And go for it. Maybe we shouldn't also have to always bring in the caveat, but I think it's important part of the conversation. Will Nolan also said 2 weeks ago on a podcast, there's invisible lat syndrome patriarchy too.
Explain it to me.
So when a guy goes to the gym and he gets all puffed up, he walks around like he's got to walk sideways through doors and he's walking around posturing. Okay. There's that kind of patriarchy too, where it's like, I'm going to decide what my wife eats, everything that she wears, all of these things where it's just.
Do people actually say that?
There are people,
I'm sure there are. I mean, there's a lot of people on the internet saying crazy things.
100%. But I think in the Catholic world, the majority of the marriages are feminist. But there's going to be a percentage, or that there's these men that are tyrants that just take this to the absolute extreme because they're insecure and they don't actually know how to wield that authority or yield that authority properly, right? Where it was a really interesting discussion with all the guys who were saying that some of the greatest kings, and this is something that I'm not equating myself to a king, but something I've done with my wife as well, is they would seek the counsel of their wives because they're pure of heart and they're prudent. And who else would have a more of a vested?
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, honestly, he does sound a little jealous. Oh, well, my traps were never as big as that guy's traps. Or lats, not traps. But that's so funny. So he's like, well, maybe we shouldn't treat our wives as literal children, and I've taken a note from history, and I've researched what the greatest kings did, and the greatest kings took counsel well. So with me and my wife, I sometimes let her give me counsel on what I'm going to be doing today. Isn't that great? That's more feminism. Also, I love how he says that a guy who picks his wife's outfit, demands what she's going to cook for dinner, like manages every single minutia of his wife's life is the patriarchy. But then he'll say that the majority of Catholic marriages are feminist marriages. So everything that's not that is a feminist marriage to him. And he's like, I'm splitting the difference. I'm like those guys, but sometimes I'll take my wife's counsel.
Interest in the household. It's the wife. Some of these biggest decisions that I make, most decisions that I make, I know I have the final say, but I want to consult my wife. I want to see what she has to say. Maybe she'll sway me because it's a good idea, and maybe we disagree, but I make the decision anyways. But I still consult her. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with
I know I have the final say. So he said, like, I make a decision in my life, but obviously he means like obviously the decisions he makes, I'm sure, affect his wife too. But I have the final say. I know that I'm the king at the end of the day. But sometimes I'll dean her to give me her advice on this.
Making a choice on something in the home. I know I could just slam the hammer down, but I think it's a good idea, and I love including her in the decision. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. I think that's proper leadership, and not just saying like you're just made for these 3 duties around the home, and that's all you're going to do. I'm not going to let you leave the house. I'm not going to let you do anything else. Like, that's tyrannical. I think that's a smaller percentage of Catholic.
Yeah, I'm going back a little bit to what you said earlier, because it seems to me what you're seeing is, okay, there's this giant threat of feminism, and people have tried to attack it in a nuanced way for so long that it loses in the stream of words what it is you're trying to say. So you want to say things directly.
Yeah. We're going to go shopping to find you a good outfit because I need you to look good. Let's go shopping. That's it.
So I sense like there's a little kind of hesitation to nuance it, because maybe to nuance it, what?
Because I just think it's been nuanced to death. Yeah. That I think we should be speaking in more plain language.
Yeah. But the fact is, there are women who are listening to this podcast right now who, when they hear wives be submissive to your husbands, they do have the hair on the back of their neck stand up because they do hear that as tyrannical. So I do think in order for them to hear what it is you're trying to say, I do think it is important that you say what you're not meaning, or you say what you don't mean.
Well, I think you have to paint the whole picture. As much as it's a smaller percentage, I truly believe of Catholic marriages. I think it's a smaller percentage. It's still a percentage, and I also condemn that. I don't live that out. There's been times where I've overcorrected, and I'm like, that just doesn't feel right, and I wouldn't want somebody to treat my daughters that way either. Yeah. But let's not make no mistake. On the flip side too, the submissiveness piece too is like, our woman says, well, if he's worthy of submission, I'll submit. Well, it's like, now he's not living according to God's standards, he's living according to yours. And so like the gas and brake pedal of feminism is toxic masculinity, that's the brake, or man up, that's the gas pedal.
Ooh, that's good.
And so now they've effectively controlled it.
If he's not worthy to submit, then I'm not going to submit to him. Oh, well, you want men to live according to your standards and not God's standards? Amazing. He doesn't brush his teeth. I'm not going to date him. What are you? What are you, trying to subvert God?
Oh, under this guise of like, you make yourself worthy. You married him. You deemed him worthy upon marriage. Respect him. Honor him. Be obedient, submissive to him. Mm-hmm.
Oh God, dude, this is so gross. He's like, if you marry a man, you need to submit to him. So gross. And this is why these guys don't want abortion to be legal. This is why these guys don't want women working in the workplace. And they also want to get rid of no-fault divorce because they do not want their wives leaving them. These two guys obviously hate their wives. They probably live in fear of their wives wanting to divorce them all the time. Why is it that they're on these podcasts saying that women need to submit to their husbands and they made their choice? Now they need to worship their husbands because their husbands are just living in terms of the direction God wants them to live. These men hate their wives and they fear that their wives are going to divorce them because to them, marriage isn't about a relationship and happiness. It's about a status thing, right? You need to have a wife and kids, and now you're like an acceptable member of Catholic society. Now you can be like ingratiated into the system and get a little bit of power in that system. Why do you think this guy says that only families should vote? Because he wants to have that power, and people without families, in his eyes, are worse than him.
All things that glory God. It's not even including things that are of grave matter. We're not saying that. If he tells you not to go to mass, go to mass. I think we live in a world that I think we do need to spell it out to a degree, because I also think guys need to be told what to do. I'm a coach in the online space. I coach Christian and Catholic guys. What to me is common sense, not that I'm any smarter, but just because I made a lot of mistakes, is not common sense for a lot of guys. So they really
I'm sure he gets real up close and personal with those young Catholic men that he's coaching. Yeah, for some of them, it's about pretending they're not gay. That's 100% true, for sure. I think you're looking at one of the guys. I don't think the other guy is gay. He hasn't really mentioned too many things about being gay, but this guy has a fixation on peepees. He has he said that watching porn is gay because you're looking at the guy in it. A lot of people that watch like straight cis porn they're not looking at the guy. They're like pretending to be the guy there, right? They're identifying with the guy. They're not like, damn, that guy's looking pretty good. That pee-pee's looking pretty good. Gotta hug the pipes.
Like, just don't be a dick, bro. Like, there's a time and place to throw the hammer down, but this is where experience is king, where you can't really teach that either, right? But let's also have the other conversation. It's like, Ripperger was probably right or underestimating when he said that over 80% of even traditional Catholics are feminist marriages. And I think it's a failure of not just in the household patriarchy with men, but it's also in the clerical patriarchy with this bracketing of Ephesians 5.
Yeah.
And this not calling women out on their sin too, because they sin too.
Yeah. They're not these little angels that don't fart.
Yeah. They poop as well.
Yeah.
Come on.
I was at mass the other day. Forgive me if people are watching, this awful mass. It looked like the liturgy was designed by grandmas or gay men. The whole thing was soft. The soft green carpet. The kind of...
Bro, grandmas are gay men? That's his analogy, and he's saying that it's soft? Grandmas are gay men. Awesome. I love how he doesn't even say feminists. He's like, fucking old people or men that love dick. I mean, don't say that too much. You're standing across from
church where they would have heated holy water font. Little fingers.
Were there guitars?
There were guitars.
Oh, yeah, of course, guitars.
Yeah. And it's just the whole. I don't know how any red-blooded man could actually respect it. And I don't think they do.
No.
It's like going to grandma's house. Like, you go to grandma's house because you actually want comfort. You want to eat a little candies and a soup. But then if the priest is there and he's going to speak something hard, that's totally out of place. Like, you don't go to grandma's house to have someone yell at you about something or to correct you on something. So they just don't correct you on stuff.
Yeah, and not to get into a rant of like the whole post-conciliar church.
But here we go.
Right, it's like... There's something about that's definitely caused this watering down of the mass for sure. Again, I still think it's all licit. I think there's just a kind of an indifference in a lot of priests. I try to be very careful with my language because I'm also not like a huge fan.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't even want to get into all of the psychological issues that he has where he's like, soft mass, that could only be an old woman or a gay man.
Francis. Mm-hmm. And what I always say is we don't have to be a fan of him. We just have to pray for him. Mm-hmm. And so like those things can exist together. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I just think it's the Homer Simpson syndrome, but now in the clergy.
Yeah, I would say though, I feel quite hopeful. I agree with you that there's a lot of priests who seem like they've given up on their vocation. Call me Jeff. You're like, okay, Father Jeff. I don't,
yeah, exactly.
I don't understand why you would do that. I get that. That's true. But I'm also seeing a lot of young men joining seminary or who have just been ordained or have been ordained for 10, 15 years, and they're really fighting the good fight. There are really good men who are priests right now.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
There's a big revival happening in the church. You can see it. There's a shift. I think there's more of this conversation about feminism. There's more of this anti-red pill, and this is the whole thing too. We need to come together and just point more people to God, get these guys out of this red pill stuff, get these women out of this feminist stuff, because like we're not supposed to be at odds with each other.
Yeah. And I do think the way to be most convincing about that is to tell them they've been lied to and to show them how that lie is made.
God, dude, I love the conflation of red pilling with feminism. He's saying that if you believe women are objects that you need to like gamify, and getting a girlfriend and a wife is like winning a game, that is the equivalent to women believing that they have equal rights to men. Holy fuck, this guy is so far gone.
them unhappy. Just like someone could have come into your life and went, this red pill thing, I get what you're reacting to and I get why you think it'll make you happy. Here's why it's a lie. This exact same thing can be said to the woman who's bought into the feminist thing.
Yeah.
Although the difference is a lot of women may kind of subscribe to feminism without knowing that that's what they're doing, whereas a lot of men kind of gladly declare that they're red pill men. We can do that as well, but
I think so. I think so too. But I also think ultimately it's on the man. I think men can lead women out of feminism. We absolutely can. I think obviously it's very important for women to call each other out as well. It's like, hey, we need to get our act together, because part of the reason our households are in disarray is because we're putting our careers over our families, which there's a problem there. We have a problem with our husbands saying no to us. You know, we effectively just want to be men, but with none of the responsibilities that come with being a man. It's different. It's very dysphoric. It's very confusing, because it's like you're pitting a woman against her own nature. Because I think naturally a woman kind of
loves children.
Yeah.
Yeah, wants to be nurturing.
Wants to be
another
home.
thing too. If you're a woman who says, well, I'm just not naturally nurturing, figure it out.
And you will.
Figure it out. This is your problem and you need to be nurturing.
That's right.
It's like if a man says, well, I don't really get confrontation. I don't really feel like protecting my family.
Exactly.
Do it awkwardly at first, but figure it out.
It's just the same thing that I'm living with my wife. I'm like, I'm not naturally very...
Oh no. He's going to talk about his wife more. I mean, I feel like I don't need to break down how stupid this is, how they're saying that women naturally want to feel nurturing, and so we're just helping women do what they naturally want to do by forcing them to stay at home and stay in a marriage that they hate. We cannot give women the option to not go with kids, because if they have that option, they might get brainwashed into thinking that they shouldn't have kids, which... It's so in line with like all conservative schools of thought on progressive issues, right? If we talk about how it's okay if you're gay, you can love who you want to love, the conservatives will say, you're telling them that they should be gay, you're sexualizing our children, you're forcing our children to be gay, you're putting that onto them. If you're telling them that, yeah, trans people exist sometimes when a kid is born, we say that they're boys, but they feel like they're girls. That's okay. Like, you can do whatever you want to do. It's the exact same thing. You're telling them that they need to be trans. You're sexualizing them. You're like, look, you're talking about genitalia in front of our kids. And they'll do this with every single, pretty much every single aspect of society. If you advocate for freedoms for people, they'll say that you are trying to indoctrinate people and saying that they should do a certain thing. Ultimately, it's all projection, right? Because these people do want to indoctrinate women and force women to stay at home, stay with the kids, find a man, find them, right? While the man can go do off and whatever they want to do. And they also do that with men, where some men will not live up to their idea of masculinity, and they will attack those men as well, because any single kind of person deviating from the norm in their minds is an affront to them, and it is an attack on their worldview. It's exactly like what we talked about when we were watching Brett Cooper, where Brett Cooper said, finally we have a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman winning Miss America. Finally, a biological woman wins. And it's like, okay, well, you look back at the list and there's never been a non-biological woman winning Miss America. So ultimately, it's that they're happy. Ultimately, it's like a brown person winning, and a different beauty standard is an affront to their worldview, and it feels like a personal attack to them. So, yeah.
Like affectionate, and I'm just going to stay with no.
Shout out
that's
Spencer.
Part of the song and dance.
And you're allowed to do it awkwardly. That's okay.
Keep trans in the U.S.
Totally. But there's not enough of that conversation.
Sometimes he walks in. It's okay.
That's okay. He can walk in and join the conversation too. But essentially, we just need to stop being at odds with one another. And I think men can ultimately lead women out of feminism, but they also have to be open to being led out of that and being told that, like, hey, you were like really, you're indoctrinated, and here's why. Because there's a place again for the heavy-handed conversation with women too. Do I think that needs to be the majority of the time? I don't think you're going to win many people that way. But I also don't think we're going to do anything by being lukewarm about it either.
Yeah.
Like this.
He's like, yeah, I've had so many conversations with men. I have had some with women. Do we need to talk with women the majority of the time? I don't think so. But like, it's not a bad idea to sometimes talk with women. This guy hates women so much.
Do I think that needs to be the majority of the time? I don't think you're going to win many people that way. But I also don't think we're going to do anything by being lukewarm about it either.
Yeah.
Like, this is evil. This is the prime evil. Yeah. You know, maybe not prime evil. There's many evils in the world, but this is a manifestation of hell on earth because it's pitted us against one another.
I want to tell you about Hallow, which
feminism is a manifestation of hell on earth. All right, let's just wrap this up with their definitions of masculinity.
Solutions
and
to said things that, again, lead a man to the pits of hell.
Anthony says, what's the biggest problem in our culture and why is it feminism?
Anthony Accorsi, my guy.
You know who this is?
Yeah, of course I do. I love you, Anthony.
Okay.
That's such a good question. I figured he'd ask that.
Did you have an answer to it?
He answered it.
Okay, fair enough. He also asks, how do we get back to true masculinity and femininity within the church and broader culture? I got a point I want to make here, and that is that it seems like we've left the path of reason, and we need to give people grace as they find their way back to it. So I don't find it terribly interesting when women do the trad wife YouTube videos where they pretend, they're just walking out onto the porch in the morning and drinking their coffee and serving their husbands all day.
Right.
But I also don't want to slam them because we've been raised without role models and we're trying to get back to something.
What makes you think they're pretending though?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I love how he's like, we need to give grace to people that are finding their way back to traditional masculinity and traditional femininity. And then his example of giving grace to someone is not leaving a negative comment on women's TikTok videos where they're like, I made homemade jam today, and then I made homemade peanut butter and homemade bread, and I made a PB&J for my husband. He's like, that's the grace that he's willing himself to show to women by not posting negative comments on his video. I thought he was going to be like, yeah, we shouldn't be rude to like feminists that shave their head because everyone has a pathway back to the light of Jesus Christ. So we should like encourage them, hold their hands, walk them through the process of discovering Jesus again. But no, he's like, the people that are already presenting my worldview, I'm not going to attack. That's the grace that he's showing.
Fair enough. Maybe they're not pretending, but it would seem to me that the quality of some of these videos takes a ton of time to do. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it looks like that. Like I don't think my wife has ever thought about filming herself making cereal or filming herself making dresses for the children. The way it's done, it feels like it's more to appeal to men to tell them what great wives they are. But maybe I'm wrong.
I think
my point is simply that we shouldn't actually shit on these women. My point isn't that we should, but just that we don't have good role models as men and women. We've been born into the aftermath of the sexual revolution, and we need to give people grace as we try to figure out what masculinity and femininity look like again. Because quite honestly, our culture, if that's what we can call this thing, doesn't know what men and women are, what sex is, what marriage is. So bloody hell.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's a total mess. So yeah, I'm not going to disparage these trad wives either. I personally think a lot of them it's a LARP as well. But if you're looking at the overall social media landscape, I'd rather take that than the OnlyFans model. Plaster yourself everywhere. So I'm not sure what the answer is besides returning to the church, seeking very wise counsel within the church, and doing your best to raise a virtuous and God-loving family in your respective roles as patriarch and wife and mother and homemaker. Because when those things are in harmony, not that there's sometimes not. This is something that Tim said that was really, really good. Tim Gordon. Not everything's.
Oh my God, another quote. I need to make like a quote counter when covering conservatives.
Symptomology, guys. So like when you're in a traditional marriage, I'm in a traditional marriage. There's going to be some things that happen. Like she's not always going to perfectly follow my authority, and I'm not always going to perfectly wield that authority either. But it's not a symptom that she doesn't respect me or she's not obedient to me, or it's not a symptom that I'm a tyrant. We're just flawed human beings trying to figure this thing out. And I just think that the goal should be to get it right most of the time, because the rest of it, that's where grace comes in. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to repent and go to confession and try to just, I'm going to pick myself up and try to do this again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Anonymous asks, what are some practical tips on breaking free?
That's so fucking stupid. Yeah, if your wife resists you, you're not being a perfect tyrant, perfect leader of it. Yeah, and also he's criticizing OnlyFans models. Those a lot of the times those trad wife type people are OnlyFans models too. Like it's essentially the same thing. It's just a different type of content that they're doing for the male gaze. Anyway, I think I'm gonna head it off here. We covered a lot of shit. Just wanted to like dive even deeper into the whole women's issues. And when they were asked at the end, like, what is masculinity? What is a good example of femininity? He's like, we just need to return to the church. So he doesn't even have a real example. He doesn't really have prescriptions. He's just trying to get more control for himself and like his cabal of people, right? The more people that are in the church, the more power he has. The less freedoms women have, the more power men have. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to be done with content for today. Yeah, if you are interested in being a mod for like my live chats and also like perusing the content section of my comment videos, perusing the comment sections on that, send me an email and I'll hook you up with that. I just have to say, like, thanks for tuning in to the stream, everyone. This was fun. I think this was like my second live stream. I live streamed the day after the election, but this is a bit of a lighter subject. Yeah, I really appreciate like Nunfo. Honestly, you're like top candidate because You do a great job of calling out bullshit too, both in comment sections and in the live chat. So if you're interested, definitely send me an email. But yeah, I really appreciate like the community that we're building here. It's been a lot of fun doing these like daily videos. And what I'm going to start doing, one other thing before I head off, what I'm going to start doing is like clipping these videos, because I've been having a lot of fun like making these multi-hour long videos every day, but I think I could reach more people if I started clipping things. So if you're interested in like participating in that and helping me clip out content, that could be cool. And we could do that on like a pay scale basis or something, where if you help me post content, you could have like maybe like 50% of the revenue for whatever that brings in. I think that would be cool. And then, yeah, also just, I really love everyone in this community, and I appreciate everyone like calling out trolls. I haven't really seen any hateful stuff. And whenever there is hateful comments, you guys do a great job of dealing with it, calling people out and shutting that down really quickly. So I feel like you're making my job as a content creator and someone who's trying to navigate this political space a lot easier. And so I do appreciate like everyone that is taking an active part in building this community. So yeah, really appreciate everyone. And thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day.